All right, so let's get this thing started, guys. Let's get to this. And once again, the title of this debate is the historical or archaeological proof of Israelites. All right, so let me open up Shelton Henderson's phone line. Let me set the timer, and you can go ahead, my brother.
Greetings again, all, and thanks for the debate tonight. The name of the debate is there archaeological evidence? I'll just kind of paraphrase for the Israelites. My answer is no. What we have is evidence, scant evidence that has been put together to come up with a conclusion for people's theological reasons. I want to quote a journalist who wrote, and this appeared on the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs website. Okay, so this is from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I have the link on my webpage. It says this: the Bible is not and was never intended to be a historical document, a work of theology, law, ethics, or literature. It does contain historical information, but if we evaluate the information, we should consider when, how, and why the Bible was compiled. The next quote I'm going to take is from Haaretz magazine. This is an Israeli publication, Friday, October 29, 1999. Following 70 years of intensive excavations in the land of Israel, archaeologists have found out the patriarchs' acts are legendary stories. We did not sojourn in Egypt or make an exodus. We did not conquer the land. Neither is there any mention of the empire of David and Solomon. Those who take an interest have known these facts for years, but Israel is a stubborn people and doesn't want to hear it. Now, this information comes from archaeologists who are professors and award-winning holders. They hold awards. They are from major universities. One person that I am relying on. Actually, I'm going to just tell you who I'm relying on, because just a quick aside. When we are on this radio talking, LaRon and I, and I can speak for myself, and I'll just say for him, maybe he can correct me if I'm wrong. We're lay people, we're everyday people, and we do our research and we find out things. We compile our information and get our opinions. We rely on scholars and professors and people who have spent their life researching. So this is how we come to our conclusions. So what I am doing is consulting someone who's a professional when I research. One person is Israel Finkelstein, who's a professor. He's an Israeli archaeologist and academic. He's a Jacob M. Alcall Professor of Archaeology in Israel in the Bronze Age and Iron Ages, and he taught at Tel Aviv University. He's also the co-director of excavations at Megiddo in northern Israel. He served as director of the Sonia and Marco Nadler Institute of Archaeology in Tel Aviv University from 1996 to 2002. In 2005, he received the Dan David Prize, which is $1 million given for outstanding scholarship. In researching this is what he has to say. He says this: the Israelites were never in Egypt, did not wander the desert, did not conquer the land of Canaan in a military campaign, did not pass it on to the 12 tribes of Israel. Perhaps even harder to swallow is the fact that the United Kingdom of David and Solomon, described in the Bible as a regional power, at most was a small tribal kingdom. Okay, he further goes on to state, Jerusalem was essentially a cow town, not the glorious capital of an empire. These findings have been accepted by the majority of biblical scholars and archaeologists for years and even decades. Research is research, and strong societies can easily endure discoveries like this, he goes to state. He has also made a film called The Bible on Earth. He's wrote a book regarding David and Solomon's supposed kingdom, which he discovers that there's no kingdom, there's nothing anywhere near what is talked about in the Bible. I also rely on the scholarship of Dr. Hector Avalos, who's a professor at Iowa State University. He's a award-winning, again, doctor of philosophy in Hebrew Bible and Near Eastern studies. He got this degree from Harvard University. He is also a Master of Theological Studies, from Harvard Divinity School, and a Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology from the University of Arizona. Also, I rely on the scholarship of Professor Christine Hayes, who is a professor of Hebrew Studies at Yale University. Now, like I said, I'm a lay person. I do my research and I find out what the experts say through a arduous process of having their work peer reviewed by their peers. In other words, they can't put out pseudoscience and pseudo history and when it comes to academics. Otherwise, we have all kind of crazy theories going on, and we would be far from the truth. So these people have produced their findings in academic journals, and they're published authors. And I want to keep my presentation concise and to the point, because you have to rely on the people that are spending the time and spending their life's work. They're spending their life's time, their life's work, doing this work here. Now, let me just get a check. Can you hear me, Sal? My phone went there. Hello?
No, you're good, brother. You're good.
Okay, yeah, I got kind of quiet. Okay, thanks. We have to rely on the people, the experts, to go in and find out what they have found. I am more apt to rely on the findings of a man that's actually digging at a site, and their findings and what they say. And especially in this case, because these people they're actually in Israel, and their whole motivation, if they were to have a motivation, would be to change what they find, not to confirm something that's totally against their existence of being there. The reason the state of Israel exists is because they feel as though they have a right because they're God's chosen people. Someone that goes through that system, goes to a university, goes and digs and finds out, hey, it's not like that. What we're finding is not corresponding with what the Bible says. So I can't think of any stronger evidence that would sway a logically rational, objective person's mind to say, where do I start? Okay, what am I looking at? And if the people that are there, when they have the motivation to do the opposite, find the true information, publish this information, to me, the logical thing to do is accept that as fact. You do confirm, you find other scholars, you keep an open mind and you read and you find out, you keep up to date. But I want to keep my presentation really kind of sharp on those points, because honestly, I've really thought about this, and I'm curious about how the brother will be able to respond to that. Because if an expert that's on site is digging and telling you one thing, I only think the only alternative that you have is to come up with something out of left field, honestly, some kind of alternative timeline, alternative chronology. I cannot think of a rational response to an expert in the field. Someone is like I said, has a vested interest in the opposite thing being true. What is the response to that? What do you come up? What options do you have when you have the consensus of scholarship stating that this archaeology is other information. That the Bible is not a historical document. That we know, and I have spoken to my opponent on other debates and through other exchanges prior to this debate. And correct me if I'm wrong, LaRon, don't want to misrepresent what you said, but according to my knowledge, he acknowledges that the Bible he acknowledged the Wellhausen documentary hypothesis, which states that this book was created, kind of retro-created. In other words, from the fifth, from 500 to 800 BC is when this document, thing we call the Bible, was written. These stories, the previous stories, were written kind of after the fact. Really after the fact, they were created to, we know that there are different problems that comes up with it. We know that there are stories that and places that are mentioned that didn't exist when they wrote the Bible. So, scholars have found that, okay, well, if they're talking about camels, and they're mentioning them in the time of Abraham, well, we know that camels didn't exist until much later. So the person that wrote that story is writing from another time period and writing backwards, creating a story, but creating this story for a point. He's trying to make a point. The JEDP, the documentary hypothesis, meaning that either teams of writers or different writers were trying to put forth agendas that serve them in the future, in their time. So they're writing a story, and then they're later on, this story is supposed to benefit them. So if they're from a priestly source, that priestly source writes for that benefit. If it's from a Yahwist point of view, meaning it had a certain viewpoint of looking at how God interacted, the God that they're writing about interacted with them, they wrote their way for their story. And so we have come to agreement on that, and like I said, he can correct me if I'm incorrect. So we know that this document has a lot of problems. We know that this Bible is undated. There are no dates saying that when this stuff happens, when they wrote in the Bible. There's no author saying, okay, this is the author, and here's the biographical information about this author. Here's the time period the author wrote it. Are the stories original? We know that there are other older Mesopotamian stories that preempt what's written in the Bible. Are the characters unique? No. So what we're looking at is a document that is not original, that has been acknowledged in this day as something that's non-historical, not a work of theology. It's not a book of laws. More than anything, it's probably a political document and serves the interest, specifically the Old Testament, because, we can just start at the Old Testament. We can't get past the first few pages. You can tell when you read a book. For the first few pages, first chapter, we know, are we reading something that's historical or are we reading something that's fiction? So it doesn't take long to, once you read and find out that an animal is having conversation with a woman and that, there's angels with wings, humanoids with wings flying around and interacting with people, that we know that this is a different type of story. This is not something that exists in reality that we exist in. So there may have been other reasons for the writers to write this, to present their point of view, but we know that it's not something that we see every day. We don't see winged humanoids or other beings flying around and interacting with us in this day. So on that note, that is my opening statement, and I look forward to LaRon's response. And I want to thank everyone for their attention, and I'll go ahead and yield the time. And thank you, Sal.
All right, guys. Once again, this is Debate Talk for You Radio, and you're officially inside the Lions Den. I see we have more and more people calling into the show. Welcome to Debate Talk for You Radio. I appreciate you being in attendance, checking out the show. And for those people that just joined in, today's debate is entitled, Is there historical or archaeological proof of Israelites? Once again, is there historical or archaeological proof of Israelites? So far, there's a lot of anticipation behind this debate. We have more and more people calling in. And once again, welcome to the show. Hopefully, you guys take it down your notes. That's what it's all about. So now, let's go to LaRon Campbell, a.k.a. G Consciousness, and see what he got to say on this particular topic. Once again, the opening statement is 15 minutes each. Let me open up his phone line, and you can go ahead, brother.
Psalms 83. Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. Below thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Kien, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent, and they are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarites, the Baal, Ammon, and the Amalek, and Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur also is joined with them. So in this text, what we have is a conspiracy, sisters and brothers, to cut off the name of Israel from history, and not only from history, from being a nation. So let's deal with this conspiracy. Number one is there is a lot of things that need to be addressed, and there is only so little time, but I'm going to stick with one subject and deal with this one subject and see where the problem has come in at. So what I want to talk about is Jericho. I want to talk about, it's called Tel Es Sultan. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about it being burned, the city being burned with fire, as it's listed in Joshua. Let's go to that real quick and grab that, and then we're going to parallel the Bible with what we see in archaeology just as well. And you guys make the choice in the decision to see if it lines up. Joshua 6:24. It says, and they burnt the city with fire. Matter of fact, let me go up a little bit. It says, verse 20, so the people shouted when the priest blew with the trumpet, and it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and took the city. And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man, women, young and old, ox, sheep, and ass, with the edge of the sword. But Joshua had said unto the two men that had spied out the country, Go into the harlot's house, and bring out thence the woman and all that she hath, as ye swore unto her. So what I want to bring out is here. I want to bring out the excavation of Kathleen Kenyon, and also of people that work with her, which is we have Ernst Sellen, and also John Gostein of Liverpool University, which was the next archaeologist to tackle the site between the years of 1930 to 1936. Serious excavations began to take place in 1907. It says, and it was not very long before he was proclaiming the discovery of fallen walls of Joshua's Jericho. It says he has found a reddish mud brick city wall encircling the upper slopes of Tel Es Sultan, and in place, a period of this wall had indeed collapsed. It says at least one of the biblical stories seemed to be confirmed. It says Joshua's wall had come tumbling down. Now, what Kathleen Kenyon, I want to deal with her because she's she's the one put forth some adversity with the findings of the other scholars or archaeologists that dug in this area. So what they did was they went into this area. Kathleen Kenyon, she went into this area and she dug, and she came to a conclusion that in the Middle Bronze Age, the wall did fall, as the text said. She said that the wall fell, and not only did it fall, it fell down, and it was excavated. The wall fell all the way down to the end of the slope, and the Israelites ran up into the city. She didn't say Israelites, but she said this city did fall, and the walls fell by an earthquake, by reason of an earthquake. This is what she said in her report. And not only that is, she said also that the city was burnt as a result and reason afterwards. And you can read this in her report. You can read it on Wikipedia. And she gives also references just as well. Now, what she found that the walls fell. She found that the city was burnt, and she also found when she went to excavate some of the houses, she found grain. Now, what's odd is a similarity between this, because when you go to grain, the grain was in jars, and during that time, it must have been, they realized it had to be harvest season when it burned down, because they had grain in jars all through these houses, and the jars was burnt up. And it says that the grain was during harvest season, basically. And what I find odd is that when you read Joshua 3 and 15, it says also that before they went over to the Jordan, it says that it was harvest season. So it's similarity here. So then when we deal with the book of, we deal with certain things that happened with the city. The city was burnt with fire. An earthquake, the walls fell by reason of an earthquake. This is her report. By reason of an earthquake. And also we find also amongst the bodies that was burnt and it was in these houses, we find plagues. We found that a plague took place during that time. Now, mind you not, one of the things that we find out is something that happened to Israel in the biblical text. That Israel began to do in the biblical text before they went across the Jordan into Jericho. And let's see what happened with that. Because when she went into excavate, she found that a plague had hit Jericho as well. Possibly this plague could have hit Jericho before they before the battle took place. Let's go to Jericho 1. Numbers chapter 25. It says, Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And it says, and they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal-peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And the Lord said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay ye every one his man that were joined unto Baal-peor. So what they begin to do is they begin to commit whoredoms, lay down with Moabs, lay down with the Moabites and the people of the land as well, and also begin to take on their gods. So watch what he said. He said, behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent. Understand, he went after the man of Israel into the tent. Get a visual of this, and thrust both of them through the man of Israel and the woman through her belly, so that the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. So in other words, he thrust both of them through at one time with the javelin, both through at one time, right? So one of the things we must realize is the plague that was started was on them was from contact with these Moabites, contact with these people that we see that they was told not to be in contact with, that Israel was told that if they partake of these to sin against the Most High, that he will bring plagues on them as well. So what we have is we have the people in Jericho, the fire. Nothing took it, no grain. They didn't even take the grain. The grain was burnt. Usually time when you burn a city, you take the spoil. Israel was told not to take the grain and was told not to take anything save the silver and the gold and everything else burned. One of the reasons why you burn something and you begin to burn a city and burn the people in the city if there is a plague that is among them. We see that in these lands of the city of Hazor and also Jericho, there was a plague in Jericho, and the Most High told him to burn these people and don't leave anything that pits against the wall. And one of the things we see right here is, it says, and he went after the man Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man in Israel and the woman through her belly, so that the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. So when he went and he thrust them through, that means they was having contact or relations with each other in this tent, because it says, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, and they have been committing whoredoms with the children of Moab just as well, and the people of the land who they was told not to. And this is one of the things that was given to them by Balaam, the prophet, to basically have them commit sin against the Most High God. Now, when we read 1 Corinthians 10 and 8, 1 Corinthians 10 and 8 talks about, neither let us commit fornication as some of them committed and fell one day 320,000. Neither let us tempt Christ as some of them also tempted and were destroyed of the serpents. So we have them committing fornication and also whoredoms with Moab, and a plague is placed on them because the people that was bringing the plague or had the plague among them was the people that was nativity of the land, which was also dealing with Jericho and across the water, and Moab just as well, because Jericho was right across. So you had the city of Hazor, and you also had the city of Jericho that he was told to burn down with fire. Now, what Kathleen King excavated was a plague. She excavated also the city being burnt fully, grain in the city, because we know that it was harvest time, and the city also being left, the grain being left, and also the wall falling just as well. Now, for anybody that know anything about Jericho, Jericho was considered to be fiction until the Bible was read, and when the Bible was read, then Jericho was a fictional city. Even though it was mentioned in the Bible had become fiction to people, so Jericho had become a fictional city until it was found. Now, when it was found, the historical evidence is in the Bible. There is no other evidence of Jericho, no other better written historical evidence of Jericho but through the Bible. Just as well when you read about the Hittites. The Hittites were not a people. They was fictional according to when you read the Bible. These were fictional people, like this brother is saying, when you deal with the Hittites, when you deal with Israel, because these were cities that was mentioned in the Bible, and once they was mentioned, when they found these cities, then we see that the Bible can be used as also as a historical book as well, because we have three factors here, and these scholars do not disagree on the fact that this city was burnt down, the walls fell down, the walls came down by reason of earthquake, and that's what they said. And not to mention, no other city during that time walls came down by reason of earthquake as these walls came down. No other city was burnt with fire, and all of this happened within the same time period as Kenyon excavated, and also Garstang excavated just as well. So they agree on that. They agree. Only thing they disagree on is the timing of it, because Kenyon said that there is no such thing as no conquest, because when Israel came into Jericho, there was no Jericho. Jericho was a mound and heaps of ruin. That's what she said. So we have a conspiracy that's dealing with time to write Israel about the history and we're going to deal with the timing and also the chronology in the next minutes to come when we deal with this debate when we get into this debate furthermore. So what we're dealing with here is a conspiracy, and not just a conspiracy, but also a time issue that we see that's taking place where people are saying there is no Israel because of the timing status. It's not based off of evidence. It's based off of chronology that was put forth, and the chronology that was put forth is not built upon solid evidence, and it must be updated even when we find evidence that we continue to find. It must be updated, which they're not willing to do that. So with that being said, I'm going to yield my time.
All right, time is up. Once again, you're now listening to the most respected debate forum via internet all over the world, Debate Talk Free Radio. The number is 646-716-7320. The title of this debate: Is there historical or archaeological proof of Israelites? My special guest debating this topic is LaRon Campbell, a.k.a. T Consciousness, versus Shelton Henderson. So now we're going into the rebuttal part of this debate. That's going to be 10 minutes each. Let's go immediately to Shelton Henderson. Open up his phone line, and you can go ahead.
Thank you again, Sal. Thanks, LaRon, for your opening statement. What struck me about his statement was that this digging that took place and the conclusions that were found from this digging was in 1932 to 1936. I'm looking here at Kathleen Kenyon and her archaeological career, and she has passed away in 1978. Now, how I respond to that is that, things have been going on since 1978. There have been hundreds and hundreds of digs, I'm sure, since 1932 to 1936. William F. Albright is who archaeology was. And he died, and everything he found, he was considered, what they call a biblical archaeologist. Basically what he did is find things and force fit them to the biblical narrative. As time went on, the archaeologists started looking and then finding what they found and drawing conclusions from that without a bias towards what the Bible says. That's how I respond to LaRon's opening statement. LaRon has quoted, he went immediately internal to the Bible. So then we need to know, is this a valid source? He quoted Psalms. Okay, who's the writer of Psalms? How do you know if you say the person that it is, when did he write it? Okay, why should we believe what this person wrote? What is the background of this person? What are the extra biblical, the outside sources? What has this person interacted with anyone else in history? Where's the record of these people that are writing these books? Again, same thing goes for Joshua and Numbers. You're talking to someone who does not believe the book that you're quoting from, so you need to validate that book. You need to have a background. He quoted Numbers. When was Numbers written? Who wrote it again? And what was the motivation? What was the time period? And what were the factors going on during that time? So that we can further research and see if there's any correlation to anything else in history. That's how I respond to his opening statement. And also how I respond is when he says there's conspiracy to wipe the Israel, to basically erase it from history. Well, okay, I can see someone saying that if all of the criticism came from people that had a vested interest in wiping Israel off the map. But when the professors and the academics in Israel and the archaeologists in Israel have a vested interest the other way to preserve but they put that aside and research, find out what's going on, and draw their conclusions from the evidence that they find, not create something that validates their existence there. When they find something that's opposite, they have no vested interest in that. So I don't know where he gets the conspiracy from. I don't know who the enemy is in this case. You know, who is the enemy? How is Israel Finkelstein, a Israeli professor, and Neil Silberman, who is his co-writer on the Bible on Earth, and these various journalists and the letters that appear on the government of Israel's website, and you know, what is their motivation to wipe Israel off the map? So I would be interested to know how he responds to that. And, you know, if the location that the archaeologists are dealing with, Tel Dan and Megiddo, what has happened at this location is they have gone down to bedrock. They've drilled down to, okay, we can't go any further down, and have chronicled the history of those sites and found things. And what they have found, they found ruins, and they're able to, there's an encyclopedic history of the people at this site. Now, they're still alive now, and they're still digging. And the one person that he gave stopped digging, it looks like, well, she definitely stopped digging in 1978. But it looks like she's best known for that Jericho, and it looks like another place from 1952 to 58. That's a long time ago. And, you know, Jericho, what other evidence does LaRon have that Jericho actually existed? You know, what can he give us? What modern-day scholar agrees with what Kenyon has stated? That's how I respond to that. And, you know, I think that, you know, going internally to this book, I think the burden is on LaRon to answer the questions. You know, what information can he give us, and dates from the Bible that he's reading these things and drawing a conclusion saying that it's true because it's here in the Bible. Okay, what makes the Bible true? You know, what makes it true? Only if you believe it, or you have a vested interest in the outcome of what you're talking about. So I think that, you know, the burden lies on him to, you know, give me a date. Give me a date that Psalms was written. Give me an author and some background biographical information and some historical context in which it was written. The book of Joshua, what about the date? You know, and who was the author? What other extra biblical information can you give to validate that this person is actually somebody that we should believe? And his evidence as far as an earthquake at that time, you know, and the walls came down. Okay, you know, I mean, what do you do with that? You know, you find a pile of rocks and you say there's an earthquake. You know, I mean, what other information do you have to verify that? And is that what you have to say that justifies the existence of the Israelites? You know, what about the fact that no information is found about the very beginning? You know, if you talk about the Israelites, what about Abraham? What's your evidence for Abraham? What's your evidence for Isaac? What's your evidence for Jacob? What's your evidence for Moses? What's your evidence for the children of Israel in Egypt? What's your evidence for them wandering in the desert? You know, what's your evidence for all the battles that is supposed to take place? What's your evidence for God coming down and talking face to face to Moses? What's your evidence for all of those things back there? Let's start from the beginning and talk about those things because they're important. Because when you open a book, the first thing you can find out if it's fiction or not, you just read basically a chapter. You can find out what type of, from what genre does this book come from, so that we can know exactly what we're writing, what we're talking about. So let's hear some evidence about that, so that we can establish, okay, is this a book that's reliable? Is it history? Is it, what are we dealing with here? And who was the author of the first part of it? And what was the biographic information of that author in the beginning? These are important things that, in this day and time, we're in a day and time where we can instantly check information and instantly verify. We're not living in a time of superstition and mysticism. We can check things. We can go and say, okay, well, here's the evidence of where Abraham was. Here's the evidence of where Moses was. Here's the evidence of the children of Israel in Egypt and the children of Israel in the desert. And here are the correspondence from kings and things. And here's the pottery. And here's all of these things that took place. So let's back up a little bit and talk about the very foundation of this book that LaRon is referring to. And I'll go ahead and yield from that point. And I await. Thank you for your attention. Bye.
Okay, once again, this is Debate Talk Free Radio. Is there historical or archaeological proof of Israelites? Is there historical or archaeological proof of Israelites? My special guest debating this topic is Shelton Henderson and LaRon Campbell, a.k.a. G Consciousness. The number is 646-716-7320. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio. So let's go with LaRon Campbell. You heard Shelton Henderson's rebuttal. A lot of questions has been put out there. A lot of information has been put out there. So, like Shelton Henderson said, the burden of proof is on my brother. Let's go to LaRon Campbell. Let's see what he brings to the table. Let me open up his phone line. And LaRon, you can go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, I find it ironic that the brother, he disregarded the things that these scholars agreed on, even though they had some objections to what Kathleen Kenyon had put forth. And then he goes on to say that he goes on to say that Kathleen Kenyon, when she died and this and that, and talks about the people who excavated, it's been excavated. I need you to name the people that excavated it from that time on. And number one is, when we deal with a tell, we deal with what you call like a layer cake or whatever, and the cake has layer. So what they do is they begin to knock off the surfaces or excavate the surfaces of each layer, and they call these layers ages, from dealing with the Stone Age, with middle, in divisions of late, early. So then you have the Bronze Age, and then you have the Middle Bronze Age and divisionals, and then you also have the Iron Ages. So when you deal with the ages and when you deal with the chronology, the first thing we must realize is, first off, this brother is saying, I need you to give me a date. Number one is, when I say that there's a conspiracy that's working here, when he said I need you to give me a date, number one is, your dating system is built off Amino-Domini. That's what it's built off of. It's built off AC and BC. This dating system was built up off of information that they put forth for us that deals with the ages on how they date pottery. So when we talk about archaeology and when we talk about these things of archaeology, it's important that number one is that we deal with Jericho. And one of the things how we date is through historical events. There is no other historical events that's written about Jericho but the biblical text. There is no other historical events that's written of Hazar but the biblical text. There is no historical events that is written of the Hittites and other people but the biblical text. And then later on, when they excavate, when they got into the stela, when they broke down the glyphs, then they see the Hittites there. So now it's not fiction anymore. Now this is historical events. So if we want to know more about the Hittites, then let's go to the biblical text then, because it's the only written say-so or so on what this is. So one thing he didn't deal with the evidence that was put forth of there's still solid evidence of this place being burnt down, an earthquake taking place. So then he wants to tell me by his scholars is more correct than my scholars. That's basically what this is. but not realizing that the same scholars that had objections to it, they all agree on certain things, and that is this city, the walls fell of this city, and they said by reason of earthquake perhaps, but they said these walls did fall. They said they never seen no walls fall like this, and Kenyon said this in a report, and also they said that it was burnt with fire immediately, and also they found grain that was in jars, preserved, burnt on the outside, and also they found a scarab, and the scarab on it had the king of Hyksos king. Matter of fact, the scarab had on it Shishi or Shisha or something. Now, what's crazy about this scarab is I want to bring out something real quick about the scarab because we're told. Let me bring out something real quick and bring this out real quick. It says that the biblical name of one of the Anakim of Keruth, Arba, or Hebron is Shisha. It is identical to the nomen Shisha inscribed on numerous Middle Bronze Age scarabs found in southern Palestine. So during this time when she excavated, she found this scarab of Shisha, and also she dealt with the plague. Now this is the thing. He's supposed to be a Hyksos king during the time of the Hyksos period. So we have Israel coming up out of Egypt, and when they come up out of Egypt, going into the wilderness and coming into Joshua, and there is a Hyksos king that's in Joshua. Now check this out. Joshua 15 and 14, as paralleling with the Bible, and this will let you know. And then we're going to deal with some astronomical dating just as well, because that's very important. Because when you deal with archaeology and when you deal with the ages, you must deal with astronomical dating as well and chronology as well. And the only reason why scholars are saying that Israel is fictional because the time period and the timing. That's the only reason why. In other words, Israel could not have built Ramesses of Pithon in the 19th century because we have their Ramesses there, and we know that during Ramesses' time, the Exodus could not have happened because of Ramesses was a king that went forth and conquered almost all the lands, basically, that was in his area. Okay, I agree with that. But when you deal with a redactor, then you realize that this book was written, that it was just in the Septuagint, and Greek is the Ramesses word, then you realize that the redactor was writing to the current event, or copyist was writing to the current event at that time of what Pithon and Ramesses was called, which was the land of Avaris of Goshen. In other words, when I write, I wouldn't write about Kemet or call it Kemet now, or call it whatever they called Upper Egypt, or I would call it Africa today. If I wanted to write about the continent of Africa, I would call it the continent of Africa. That's what I would call it. I wouldn't call it what it was back then. So that's what we have them doing when you says Ramesses and Pithon. So let me bring out something real quick. Joshua 15 and 14. It says, and Caleb drove thence the three sons of Adnah. It says Shisha and Ammon and Talmai and the children of Anak. So this is in this land we're dealing with a people that's in this time that's related with these scarabs to this Hyksos king. It says because that's what she excavated. She found in this place, in this home, on the dead, by a dead woman body, her bones, she found a scarab of a Hyksos king during that time. So we know that during that time, and that's in the Middle Bronze Age, to where she's saying that where she excavated in the Middle Bronze Age. So it says in both Joshua 15:14 and Judges 1 and 10, we are told that Caleb defeated and destroyed Shisha, Ammon, and Talmai, the three Anakites from Hebron. And it says, if these three had lived in Caleb's time rather than in the Hyksos period, we have here an excellent illustration of the way the biblical writer uses traditional materials, right? So check this out. Number one is this brother is not dealing with the fact that when we deal with, he's jumping over here. Now let's deal with Jericho. Let's deal with what these scholars agreed on, and I need you to give me evidence of scholars that said anything other that this Middle Bronze Age city was not burned with fire, the walls did not come down, the scourge of Shishi, and also the grain, which all of these things line up with what the biblical narratives have said. I need you to give me something, some substantial evidence that sticks that these things did not happen. And you have not done that. So I don't have to prove to you about Psalms or Numbers. No, I need you to prove to me that what I parallel with the archaeology is not true. That's furthermore. Tell me that this city didn't burn by these scholars. Tell me that this city was not, the walls not tumble. Tell me there was not no plague going on in this area across the Jordan and also on this side of the Jordan. Tell me about the scarab of Shisha. What was it doing there? So you need to tell me about the things that was in these areas before you say there is no archaeology evidence of Israel when we have historical evidence in the Bible of mentioning of this city that was supposed to be fictional until it was excavated and its tale was escalated, brought forth. And with that, I yield.
All right, once again, guys, you're officially inside the Lions. And you are now listening to Debate Talk for You Radio. The number is 646-716-7320. I see we have a lot more people joining the show, checking us out via phone, via internet. I appreciate everybody out there that's been spreading the show all over social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, letting the people know that Debate Talk for You is on the air right now. So I appreciate your support, guys, supporting Debate Talk for You. So right about now, we're going to go into the cross-examination part of this debate. Each opponent has prepared some questions to ask each other. The person answering the question only has 1 minute to answer the question, without interruption, of course, 1 minute to answer the question. Once the 1 minute is up, you're going to hear this sound. When you hear that sound, I mean 1 minute is up, and it's time to go on to the next question. Before we get into that, all of those people that's in the Chicago area, if you're in the Chi-Town area, make sure you go to the live debate that's going down in Chicago on Saturday, November 1st, brought to you by Black Intelligente, sponsored by Debate Talk for You Radio. Once again, that's Saturday, November 1st at 8:30 p.m. You want to check out the debate between Israel Doctrine and Sankofa. You may know them from the House of Consciousness. You know Israel Doctrine from Debate Talk for You and the House of Consciousness. And the title of that debate in Chicago in front of a live studio audience will be, is the Bible the best tool for our liberation? Is the Bible the best tool for our liberation? Once again, this is Debate Talk for You, first event sponsoring Black Intelligente. So you want to check out that live debate in front of a live studio audience. And also, they're working on a live stream for that debate. Once again, it's going to be $20 per ticket. We're going to let you guys know about that information pretty soon. And if you want to go to the location, let me give you the address. It's at the Lighthouse Whole Food Grill. At the Lighthouse Whole Food Grill at 1373 East 53rd Street in Chicago. For further information, the number is 773-633-2587. That's 773-633-2587. Once again, Chi-Town, make sure you come out that night, November 1st, and show your support of Black Intelligente and Debate Talk for You. All right, so let's jump into this cross-examination part of this debate. Once again, that's 10 minutes each. And we're going to start off with Shelton Henderson asking questions to LaRon Campbell. Let me know to open up their phone lines. And Shelton, you can go ahead, brother.
Okay. I'm just going to respond and ask questions. So part of my first question is, what is the name of this debate?
The name of this debate is, can we find Israel as a historical, in historical and archaeology?
Right, of the existence of the Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you quoted, here's my questions. Do you have any evidence of the life of Abraham?
Well, the Elba tablets speaks on Abraham and the Elba tablets just as well.
Did Elva spell that for me?
It's ELBA. Elba Tablet.
Elva Tablet. Okay.
It speaks on.
Okay. You quoted the Book of Psalms. Who wrote that book?
David wrote it. I mean, what does that have to do with what we're talking with Jericho?
My question time. I'll answer your questions. When did David write that book?
Ain't no telling. Probably 10, 12 BC in that area. That's what they have. David wrote down in the chronology. 10, 12 BC.
What chronology?
The chronology that was built by scholars.
What scholars?
Eventually, scholars. All types of scholars that presented evidence. They went out into the land and searched the land. And came forth and built a chronology. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, when people came forth with information, historical information, one of the things they did was they came forth for Kathleen and different other scholars and excavated it. They built a chronology supposed on the Bronze Age, Stone Age, and also Iron Age, and then we did also with the AC and BC dating and stuff like that.
Okay, so Kathleen, many hundreds of years after the fact, determined that David existed and wrote this at between 10 to 12 BC, BC.
Well, Kathleen, that was not even her. That was not even her area for real. She excavated Jericho, the area we've been dealing with. That's what she excavated.
Okay, so you haven't given me an answer for who actually, could verify that David wrote that. Okay, the Book of Joshua. Who wrote that book?
Joshua wrote it.
Okay, when did he write it?
Possibly around about 1400 BC in that area. Probably in that area.
Okay, and what verification do you use to give me that date?
The historical events that I just read to you that we've been dealing with Jericho the whole time. The wall falling. You wouldn't know anything about Jericho except it was historical events that was written in the Bible, except the historical events that's written in the Bible.
Okay, so you said that all this information, and if you're going to stay on Jericho, the only place that is written about is in the Bible, right? That's what you said, right?
You said the only place, the mention of Jericho,
right.
First you mentioned, if you know the history of it, Jericho was considered a fictional city because the Bible was considered fictional. So when they found Jericho, then they began to realize that this is the biblical Jericho that the Bible was speaking on, that the Bible was talking about.
Okay, what other scholars do you rely on other than Kathleen Kenyon?
Well, the more and I don't even really rely on her. She objects to biblical Israel because she said when they came into Joshua, according to the chronology, when they came into Jericho, according to the chronology, there wouldn't have been any Jericho. There was just a mound or something. There was no evidence of Israel there. But when she dug down into the Middle Bronze Age, because that's what a tell is just like a layered cake. So when you excavate it and go into the ages of that layer cake, then you see that in the Middle Bronze Age you see a city called Jericho, and then you also see it being burned with fire. You also see the standing walls that stand beside it with evidence of mud brick walls. It fell.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that copyists wrote the Bible? Redactors and copyists, you use those words?
Definitely. Definitely. What copyists ain't wrote no history?
Right.
Well, so in other words, let me answer that fully.
Hold on, you gotta save your questions. Okay, you gotta save your questions for your time, brother. Save your questions.
No, I'm finna answer it. I'm finna answer his question. I'm not finna answer his question. I'm finna answer it fully.
I thought you asked the question though. All right,
I'm gonna answer this fully for y'all, for those that's listening. Number one is this: we must realize that every information that we got from whoever it come from has been Hellenized. Every information that we got from the transliteration of the glyphs, because they found the Rosetta Stone in 190 BC, and the Septuagint predates the Rosetta Stone because it was from 300 to 200 BC.
Okay, I don't want you. I understand that, but you're kind of getting away from my question. I don't want to lose my time, so I do have several more questions.
And he does have a minute to answer the question, too. I'll let you know, Shelton. He has a minute to answer. But go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if you want to finish, go ahead. I'll wait.
Yeah, so when we're dealing with evidence, factors. Whenever you're dealing with history, history is built off of evidence that line up with written text. And if we have the only written account of Jericho as being a written account of the only city of Jericho, then it is a historical evidence, because the archaeologists agree that this city was burnt with fire, the walls fell, and they also agree with the grain, and it was around harvest time, and it was in the middle Brages. The only thing they disagree with is the timing, and that's it. And if the timing is a factor, then...
Okay, I want to go ahead and kind of focus on, do you have any evidence of the children of Israel wandering in the desert?
Yes, we have evidence. We have evidence of the children of Israel, and Saudi, and we have evidence of children of Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Jebel Outlaws. That's what we have. Jebel Outlaws is in the land. It's in the land of Arabia. The people who are in confederate against Israel holds the antiquities of Israel, because Israel is deeply rooted with Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Iraq, and these different lands, because they was in their lands, and Saudi Arabia just as well. So one of the things I want to bring out is this: is that Egypt is not being Egypt is not under the Egyptians. It's up under Arabs. It's up under Islam, and Islam is confederate against the Jews. So they have all their information.
Okay, let me move over to the Bible. Do you believe the Bible is the inerrant word of God?
Most definitely.
Where is God?
Where is God?
Yeah.
God is in the universe. He's outside of the universe. God is the atmosphere. God is, but as an individual, and we're in the image and likeness of God, God is in the heavenly realm.
In the heavenly realm. Okay.
Yep.
What's he made of?
He's a spiritual being. He's a spiritual being. He's made the Egyptians called it the Ka. The Egyptians called it the Egyptians called it the Ka. They dealt with spirit beings, the inner man. He's a spiritual being. He has a body. He has a figure.
Okay, he has a body. Is he visible or invisible?
I mean, what's invisible to you is because you can't see with the eyes, because you only use 10% of the capacity of your brain. So it would be invisible to you. When you use the full capacity of your brain, then you can get on the dimension to actually see God.
Okay, so he's invisible to me. Is he invisible to you?
Oh, yeah, he's definitely invisible to me, but I know that he's real, though.
Okay. Is he 3 parts or 1 part?
Which means he 3 parts. He can be whatever part he wants. He structures your DNA. Why couldn't he be whatever part he wants?
Okay.
If you look at there's definitely evidence of him. To say that there is no God, and we see moons and planets out there with moons on it to serve for the same purpose that they serve on the earth. Well, who was out there then? If you see by chance, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. My last question: do you believe that snakes and donkeys can have conversations with human beings?
I believe at one point they did. Why would people have subjects and not be able to communicate with their subjects? Everything speaks, everything communicates. It's just you listening. Can your mind comprehend?
Okay, if I had more time, which Bible is true? Which Bible is the Word of God?
What you mean, which Bible?
Okay, you got various Bibles. You got the Eastern Bible, you got the Ethiopian, the Syrian, you got the Orthodox and the West Bible. Which one is the Word of God?
I mean, Biblos, his books, his transliterations into their languages, but they all still hold a common message in the same thing. You can't find many books that got something in common with each other, and they all got something in common, that there is a creator that's outside of man.
Okay, they all have different books in them, so which one is the actual word?
All right, guys, we're still in the cross-examination part of this debate. Once again, the title of this debate is there historical or archaeological proof of Israelites? There's a lot of people sending me emails, letting me know that they're checking out the debate and getting out the information. So, make sure we stick to the topic. My brothers, stick to the topic. Is there historical or archaeological proof of the Israelites? So let's go to LaRon Campbell, who's going to ask questions to Shelton Henderson. Let me open up the phone lines, and go ahead.
So, are you familiar with the Are you familiar with the papyrus? Papyrus?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, what that is it's basically it's plagues that took place on Egypt, and it's dated to the about the 19th dynasty, and that's what they say according to date. So you're not familiar with that at all?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. Well, are you familiar with the dating system that we date on? I mean,
what dating system are you talking about?
The chronology that we build according to, we say this according to a list of Manethos, kings of Egypt.
No, I'm not.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. When we talk about Jericho, are you familiar with Jericho, right?
Of course.
Okay, so if you're familiar with Jericho and you're familiar with Catalin Ken, she talked about the walls falling down during the Middle Bronze Age period. Do you agree with that?
Her findings are not conclusive, and again, she dug back. It's almost going on 100 years ago. So between that time and now, archaeology and scholarship has continued. People have continued to look. There are schools in Copenhagen, and there's worldwide interest in this subject. It is a live subject, a live area of study. So for somebody that dug, like William F. Albright, who's the father of biblical archaeology, his findings have been thrown to the side because he just dug to find out. If he found something, he just force-fit it into the Bible to make it fit what he wanted to fit. That changed over time, whereas archaeologists, like every other discipline, go in and they let the research take them where they need to go. They look on the ground and they see what it says, and then they build a story based on that. They don't take the Bible and find stuff and say, okay, yeah, well, let me fit that date right there.
Okay, so I mean, I still haven't seen you name any of anybody that has done later excavations besides Kathleen and John Garsting, and also because it says it's excavated by 3. Also, who's the other guy? Ernst Stelling. I still have not seen you name those, but this is what I want to ask you. Are you familiar with Amenemhat III?
Let me answer the question. I did give you names. I gave you Israel Finkelstein, who's the professor of archaeology at Tel Aviv University. I gave you Neil Silbers. Neil Silberman.
You said Tel Aviv University, right? That means he's excavating Tel Aviv, right? You know what Tel Aviv is, right?
No, he's not excavating Tel Aviv. He's excavating Megiddo. Okay, and there was another site I gave you. The sites.
Did he excavate Jericho?
No, he didn't.
Okay, so why are you mentioning that? Why are you mentioning that?
Yeah, hold on. LaRon, he has a minute to answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, the other I can give you is William Deaver. I gave you Dr. Hector Avalos. These are contemporary. These are people that are living now. They're living today. Who have been, within the last 70 years, there has been, it's been going on. It's nonstop. So, so I rely on the people that are alive and their work can be checked. We have unlimited access to information.
Okay, as y'all heard, this brother named a couple of archaeologists, I suppose scholars or whatever, and none of these guys are excavating Jericho. So once again, he has failed to answer that. Also what I want to deal with is, I heard you talking about, you're an atheist, right?
Yeah.
You believe in evolution?
I sure do. It's not necessarily a belief. It is I accept evolution.
Okay, you accept it, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you accept it with lack of evidence?
There's plenty of evidence.
Oh, there's plenty of evidence.
Yes,
There's plenty of evidence to cosmic evolution.
To what kind of evolution?
Cosmic evolution.
You didn't. You asked me did I believe in evolution. I told you.
Okay, there's different types of evolution. There's 6 different types of evolution. There's plenty of evidence for cosmic evolution.
Okay.
Is there plenty of evidence? I'm asking you that because you're talking about what the evolution is not a belief. But number one is when you deal with the 6 evolutions that we list of, only one of them, which is variations of species, is correct. The other 5 is incorrect because number one is they all have assumptions behind it, and assumptions cause a lack of information, and a lack of information deals with belief because you're believing something with a lack of information. So that's not precise. It's like you saying 2 plus 2 is not 4.
Well, let me respond to that. As I said, I accept evolution. I accept that, if a doctor prescribes medicine to me and it is based on biological evolution, I will take that. It takes no belief to do that. There's a mountain of evidence and a mountain of research and trials and experiments to verify that. So it doesn't require my belief. And I'm not sure how it fits in with the fact that we're talking about historical or archaeological proof of the Israelites.
Definitely, because it definitely fit in. Because what we're dealing with is we see that you're basing substantiating your what you believe as your scholars, besides my scholars. When I'm telling you about Jericho, that we have evidence of a biblical people here, and also, are you familiar with the Armana letters? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
Are you familiar with the Habaru or the Abaru?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so you got a lot of things to get familiar with before you can decide that you're an atheist and you got a lack of evidence of even reading things. If you went to court and you was a lawyer, you came with lack of evidence, you ain't going to win that case, brother. You're going to lose that, definitely.
Okay, because you didn't provide me. You have an opportunity to provide it. You didn't.
Exactly, because I can only deal with you so much because you unlearned in a whole lot. If you don't know anything about the Abaru, then how you going to tell me that there is no evidence, but then you don't know you're ignorant of the evidence? That doesn't make any sense.
Let me ask you very simple questions, and then I can respond to ask you very simple questions.
So let me ask you a question.
I'm not finished. I'm going to have time to respond to your question.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. I asked you very simple information as far as who wrote the books that you are referring to. And I also asked you to provide some scholars. You only gave one person who died in 1978. And you're talking about Jericho, but you can prove Jericho, all the stuff that you said, but you're still not providing any. You have a book, but you're just concentrating on Jericho. What about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? What about the children of Israel? What about the fact that, you tell me that, an animal, a snake, and a donkey can have a conversation with a human being? Now, that's not a rational thing, okay? You told me that God exists out somewhere in the heavens. Where is this stuff? You're telling me that he's invisible. So, maybe the same thing goes back to you to say, okay, you called me unlearned about something, but I don't think you have a place if you're telling me that, you can't tell me the dates of things and you don't have it. You're telling me about one scholar who died in 1978. So you can bring up all the letters, and there's very different. Every letter and information you bring up is very.
Yes, I once again, I need you. Like, you're so ignorant of a lot of stuff that I can't really bring to you because you're ignorant of. I might as well just continue on stop even rebutting you, and just go on and continue on with my information because you're ignorant of the information that I can even bring to you because you don't even understand this stuff. How can I dispute with you about something that you don't even know about?
Well, why don't you bring it? You didn't bring any information. You're telling me that, you asked me about it. Your chore here is to bring the information to buttress your case.
Yeah, we got 15 minutes to rebuttal.
Let me finish responding.
I'm not going to
respond.
Let him answer. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay, so your chore here, if you're in court, bring the evidence that don't ask me what I know about this thing. Tell me what your evidence is so that you can provide, more for your side.
All right, 10 minutes is up. Once again, that was the cross-examination part of this debate. I know you guys took down a lot of information. Once again, I'm getting a lot of responses from the people out there. I see we got people pressing number 1 already, waiting patiently for the public Q&A. Like I said earlier, if you missed the earlier part of the show, this show is all about the people getting answers to their questions. So if you want to call in, the number is 646-716-7320. If you know you're going to have a question, just press the number 1, and I'll add you to the conversation. Just stand by for the public Q&A. We're getting very, very close to the public Q&A part of the show. We can hear from the people out there. Well, right about now, we're going to take an 8-minute intermission break, guys. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back with the second rebuttal. That's going to be 7 minutes each, and after that is the public Q&A. So don't you guys go anywhere. Stand by. We'll be right back after these messages. It's Debate Talk for you. Stand by. All right, guys, we are back. Once again, this is Debate Talk for you. You're listening to Season 5 of Debate Talk for You Radio, and welcome, everybody, to the Lion's Den. That's right. We have a lot more show for you guys. I appreciate your patience. We have a lot more debate. We're going to go into the second rebuttal part of this debate, and after that, we're going to go to the people to hear what you guys got to say. Once again, I see people pressing number 1. You got to press it 1 time and stand by for the public Q&A. If you press it more than 1 time, you may lose your slot on the switchboard. So if you have a question, just press it 1 time and wait patiently for the public Q&A. Before we get the second rebuttal started, just to let you guys know, we have the official Black Lions Den T-shirts available right now for the people out there with the brand new logo, Debate Talk for You. Once again, it's the black official Lions Den T-shirt. I got to put up the logo later on, the new logo. Basically, it's the one with the lion on the left-hand side of it with the Debate Talk for You globe in the middle. You have a stage background, and it's looking real nice. We're going to have some hoodies available for the people real soon. It's going to be $15 per shirt. If you want to get those shirts, you got to go to www.paypal.com and use the email orders@debatetalkforyou.com. Once again, write this down. That's orders with the S at the end at debatetalkforyou.com. Free shipping and handling. It's got to pay $15, and I'm going to send you guys the official brand new shirts. It's definitely looking hot. I can't wait to get the hoodies available for the people out there. So once again, let you guys know that the shirts are available for the masses. If you want them shirts, go to paypal.com and make sure in the description box you leave your address and your shirt size, so I can know what shirt to send you guys, and it's going to be, definitely appreciate the support out there. Of course, I got to let you guys know about the schedule for next week. Actually, this past week that we supposed to have a debate about can a woman preach and teach the scriptures. Apparently, Brother Sha'ala couldn't make it. However, we worked it out for next week coming up, and we have a brand new contender inside the Lions Den debating that topic. Well, actually, he's been here before. Dwayne Barton is going to be here. He was originally on the card versus LaRon Mabin from Absolute Bible Truth. He's an assistant teacher at Absolute Bible Truth. So that's going to be Dwayne Barton versus LaRon Mabin. That's going to be on a Tuesday. That's Tuesday, October 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Can a woman preach and teach the scriptures? It's a lot of anticipation behind that debate, a lot of controversy behind that topic. You don't want to miss that show next Tuesday, October 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Dwayne Barton versus LaRon Mabin. Wednesday, we're going to have Stanley going to be here, Stanley Sylvain. He just debated last week Pastor Dowell. As a matter of fact, that debate has went viral. I mean, a lot of people are still checking out the debate in the archives. Pastor Dowell he has a video up asking people to respond to it about who won that debate. And shout out to Pastor Dowell, too, for, giving us the publicity on his channel. Letting people know that Debate Talk for You is official, and we do the best debates in the world out there. And so Stanley Sylvain is going to be back Wednesday, actually, touching the topic again. And the topic of his class will be Speaking in Tongues Taught from the Bible. Speaking in Tongues Taught from the Bible. Once again, it's going to go down Wednesday, October 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. There's going to be no show on Thursday, but we're going to have a show on Friday, October 10th. Of course, the Lions Den debates is back in full effect. We're going to have Lord Abba in the house. Lord Abba, representing the Moorish Science Temple of America, versus Chief X, representing Pan-Africanism. And this is the first kind of debate of its kind on the Lions Den Debate Talk for You. Finally, we got a Moorish brother stepping in the ring versus the Pan-Africanists. I'm definitely looking forward to that debate. And the title of that debate will be Moors versus Morocco. Why do American Moors claim Morocco? Once again, Moors versus Morocco. Why do American Moors claim Morocco? And that's what we want in debate talk. We want a lot, we want a lot of diversity. We want to have different denominations come in the Lions Den in the ring and debate this particular topic. So once again, tune in next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, Debate Talk Free Radio. Let's jump right into this debate right now. Let's go to the second rebuttal part of this debate. Then we open up Shelton Henderson's phone line. He has 7 minutes. Go ahead, my brother.
Thanks again, Sal. My response to the debate at this point in time is that, based on the last exchange, LaRon asked me questions, do I know about this and do I know about that? The function of the debate is to present evidence so that you can refute what I'm refuting. What my argument is, you're supposed to bring a refutation with evidence. So actually, if you have evidence, you should present that so that knocks down my argument. Not to ask me, do I know, because what that is, that's a diversionary tactic where you try to basically attack, and I use that not meaning attack, but just to confront your opponent and divert away from the subject. You don't know anything yet, you're not ready. I've heard that before. That's a bluff tactic that people who don't know things try to act like they know, so they bluff their way. You're not ready for this. This knowledge is too deep for you. I may as well just dismiss you because, you got to spend more time in the books and reading and things like that. But that's just a diversionary tactic, as well as his attempt to go into evolution, which has nothing to do with historical evidence of Israel. So again, that's a diversionary tactic to draw away the attention from the fact that this case is non-existent. LaRon is relying on this scholar, Kathleen Kenyon, again, who died in 1978. He referred me to the Wikipedia page, and I read that, and it says, part of what she says, part of the thing he referred me to was, although Kenyon, I'm going to quote here from the Wikipedia page, although Kenyon had no doubt the sites she excavated were linked to the Old Testament narrative, she nevertheless drew attention to inconsistencies, concluding that Solomon's stables at Megiddo were totally impractical for holding horses, and that Jericho fell long before the arrival of Joshua. Consequently, Kenyon's work has been cited to support the minimalist school of biblical archaeology. Now, this minimalist school, based on what this woman found, this archaeologist, what she found supports the minimalist view of the Bible, which is that, and I'm waiting for my computer to switch over, and I'll kind of paraphrase if it doesn't switch. But basically, the minimalist school is the school of the Copenhagen school, the scholars from the Copenhagen school. And basically what they say, let me just flip over. I'll just paraphrase. It says, first, that the Bible cannot be considered reliable evidence of what happened. That is her findings. And again, she's from a different era. And based on what she wrote, the school that evolved from her findings discredit the Bible. Okay, so you have a whole school that derived their basis from her. What else did we want to do? My response to Ron pulling these dates, I asked him questions in the question and answer, about who wrote this and when, and he's pulling these dates out of thin air. Is around about this time and that time. There's nothing concrete about what he's talking about. There's no, David wrote it. Who's David? There's no evidence. David, okay, tell me about David. Is there anything outside of the Bible that you're talking about, the information that you can give me about David? If we are to follow that mode of thinking, then let's compare and contrast the Book of Mormon. If I told him that, well, according to the Book of Mormon, the angel Moroni said that this and that, and it's true. He's not going to accept it. I'm sure that he's not. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I don't believe he's going to accept what the angel Moroni told Joseph Smith when he went into a cave. He's not going to accept it because it's written in the Book of Mormon, and it's in no other book but the Book of Mormon. So no. So can we find the cave that Joseph Smith went into? Yeah, but okay. Does that prove that the angel Moroni is true? Is what he told him is true? No, it does not. So this is if this is the mode he's going by, going internally to the Bible and reading from the sacred writings of what he believes, because they're not sacred to me because I don't believe it. So the side of what, give me some evidence. And especially I kind of really want to stress, stay on topic. I mean, like, don't try to divert and ask me things about evolution and ask me about things what do I know. Because you're in court, you're the lawyer for your side. You're to present evidence. It should be to your advantage, and I encourage you to do that if you have the opportunity. Present the evidence that I don't know, because that will make you win this debate. Which I don't think that's going to happen, because you would have just presented the evidence. So, like, I'm giving you evidence of graves of digs that provide no evidence. You should give me evidence of archaeologists today who have dug and found things. Let's get off of Jericho. Give me some graves that were dug, and some pottery, and some letters, and some kingdoms, and some architecture. If you want to find out, a parallel is the Ugaritic texts that were found, the artifacts that were found. There's museums full of information of the gods and goddesses that they worship. So I encourage you to provide that. So that's my response. Let's stop, like pinpointing on Jericho. You got a whole book and a whole lot of other things that you can talk about. Tell me some hieroglyphics that depict, a million people or whatever, hundreds of thousands of people leaving Egypt and not wrecking their economy. And they kept records of everything. So, you got plenty of stuff you can deal with. I don't know why you're still on this Jericho. And I mean, I'm waiting. I'm your opposing counsel, and you have evidence that I don't know. So okay, let's hear it. And like I said, I'm going to I'll just continue. These people, the scholars that I have.
All right, time is up. That was Shelton Henderson with his second rebuttal. And I know you guys got a lot of information out there. We're going to go to the people right after this. The number is 646-716-7320. I can't wait to hear from the people, to hear what you guys got to say about this debate. Who made the better points tonight? Was it Shelton Henderson? Was it LaRon Campbell? You decide. Once again, the number is 646-716-7320. Once you call in, you got to press the number 1, and I'll add you to the conversation. Don't wait too long, because the switchboard is already lit up. So if you want to make sure you get, be heard, you got to call in ASAP. 646-716-7320. So let's go to LaRon Campbell right now with a second rebuttal. We'll open up his phone line, and LaRon, you can go ahead.
All right, so I want to get off into Joseph a little bit. We have a secondary account of Manetho and his writings, and it says Manetho on Ptolemais and the Hyksos. It says Ptolemais, which is actually Dudimos, and he ruled in the 13th dynasty. It says, in his reign, for what cause I know not, a blast of God smote us. It says, the Egyptians. It says, unexpectedly from the regions of the east, invaders of an obscure race marched in confidence of victory against our land. By main force, they easily seized it without striking a blow. Finally, they appointed as king one of their number, whose name was Silitis. It says in Silitis Nam he founded a city favorable of situated on the east bank, the Bisbastic branch of the Nile, and it is called Avaris after an ancient religious tradition. Since this place he rebuilt and fortified with massive walls, planting there a garrison of many as of 240,000 heavily armed men to guard his frontier. So that's dealing with Joseph. That's dealing with not Joseph. That's dealing with Tudimaeus or Dudimos in the reign of the 13th dynasty. And what he says is, he says, a blast of God smote us. And what we refer this to a blast of God of Exodus that took place. And when an Exodus took place, only a fortified city. How does a fortified city gets taken over, and then Tudimaeus, he makes an account of it, and he says that a obscure race came in and took them without even a blow. That sounds like the plagues to me. So when we deal with the papyrus of Apur, that we must realize that this papyrus was accordingly supposed to be written in the 19th dynasty around that time, or I'm gonna say 13 BC, and that area says from 13 BC to the 19th dynasty, right? Okay, in that time, why would he write that when they was prosperous during that time, up under Seti the First, Seti the Second, and up under Ramesses II? They was prosperous during that time. There was no need for him to write a poem about what was going on in their city that is line for line with the biblical text. So also I want to deal with, also when we deal with Joseph, a canal. You can look this up. It's called the Bar Yasaf. And the Bar Yasaf is an Arabic, which roughly translates from the Arabic as the waterway of Joseph, but literally sea, not river, which would be Nar. It is a canal which connects the Nile River with the Fayum in Egypt. In ancient times, it was known as Merer, the Great Canal. This project was built at the time of Amenemhat III, who was also known as Morris or Merer. And so this was originally in prehistoric times a natural offshoot of the Nile, which created a lake to the west during his high floods, beginning with the 12th dynasty. So we have Joseph in the 12th dynasty, and he builds what you call a waterway of Joseph. Now, during Amenemhat III, his reign, he had a time of regular floods, and he had a time of a high flood. Now, floods also cause famine just as well as the biblical account also talks about too, because he said out of the river came forth fat cows and also deal with diseased cows as well. What that means is different times in Egypt, the flood can either cause a famine or cause prosperity to come in the land. If the flood was too high, then it overflooded the crops, so it caused famine. And Amenemhat III's reign, he had two forts, and on each side of the fort that he built, the river was in between the Nile, and he would mark when the Nile's levels, how high the Nile level was. So he marked the period of a flood. And in his time, there was a reign of flood in his time under the reign under Joseph during his time. Joseph built a canal, which is called the waterway of Joseph, to offshoot the flood water to go into the Fayum Basin or the Bar Yasaf, to offshoot it by 50% and go into the canal, which became the Fayum Basin or enlarged lake, to offshoot the flood that was taking place. And the biblical account relates the flood being due to the river in actuality, which flooded out the crops because the cows came up out of the river, which is what we're talking about. So we have him in the 12th dynasty that I just read to you about, and you can look at the information on, just type in the Bar Yasaf. And then type in that up under the 12th dynasty, and I read to you about the 13th dynasty, which deals with Tudimaeus, which is Dudimos. And Dudimos is in the 13th dynasty, and after his reign, the blast of God smote them, and that's when the obscure race, which is the Hyksos, came in and which we believe that Jesus is the Amalekites, which smote Israel from the back, according to the historical text of the Bible, which the Bible, we believe that the Bible is a historical text, and went back into Egypt and took over Egypt and reigned in Egypt during this time as being the Hyksos. That's what we believe about the Hyksos. So we have the mention of the Abaru, which deals with, we're going to deal with that if time permits. But if you look up Bar Yasaf, look up that, or the Fayum Basim, and look up.
All right, LaRon, apologize, brother. The time is up, though. Time is up. And hopefully later on in the final statement you can bring out the rest of that information. But right now, it's the public Q&A. This is your time, guys. This is your time. Once again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to call in. I see we have a lot of people standing by. That press number 1 from way earlier in the show. I appreciate your patience. Live on Debate Talk for you. So we're going to go to the people right about now to hear what you guys got to say. And, for those people that are new to the show, once you call in, say your name, say where you're from, and go into your question or your comment. Once again, for those people that don't know, there's no foul language, guys. No foul language. We have people listening with their kids right now, and that's how we keep it clean on Debate Talk for you. So no foul language, or you'll be blocked from the show. All right, so let's go to the first person. Let's go to 215-954. That's my brother James right there. What's going on, brother?
Peace. What's going on?
Doing pretty good, man.
Yeah. I'm kind of on the ropes on this one. It's I would have to side with the atheists. I don't think that it was kind of a little off topic. The arguments that was being posed by the brother. I agree with his premise though. I do believe that the children of Israel, or they did exist, but it was like it kind of got off topic a little bit. I think that another thing we got to keep in mind is that a lot of evidence was destroyed. A lot of evidence pertaining to people in ancient history was destroyed. Archaeology within itself is under the confines of our oppressor, Europeans, and they always have an agenda behind their research. So, with that I would have to, agree with his premise. But I think the brother laid down some arguments like you can't, within the confines of empirical data, and that is Eurocentric in origin. I think the better argument will probably be dealing with the Bible pertaining to the prophecies, of Deuteronomy 28, etc. I think that would have been a stronger argument because those are things that you really can't deny. You really can't deny certain things that has been put in the Bible pertaining to the historicity of or the existence of a people, Israel, whether it was historical or prophetic. I more so agree with the latter. But, pertaining to, within the confines of the debate and the empirical data, it's very hard to prove that any of those characters existed. The names was kind of corrupted at a point in time. I think that a lot of things that may be applied to so-called David may have been the stories of other people. Or another thing we have to keep in mind is that a lot of those people during that time had an oral tradition. They are a product of various invasions, and obviously the oral tradition has been lost or is today kept hidden in secret societies. So with that, it's very hard to prove that these people actually existed. So with that in mind, I would have to side with the atheist dude. I forget his name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Shelton Henderson.
Shelton X, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Shelton Henderson, you want to reply to that?
I don't have any particular response to it. I just want to thank him for for calling in and listening, and I appreciate you giving me the time to to consider what I said. Thank you for that.
LaRon, you can reply.
Yeah, with James already done got that work before, so he definitely gonna disagree. But anyways, You know, when you deal with the evidence, it's only so much time to bring with the evidence. What the time we got, you know, we got a rebuttal, then we got the questions and stuff like that, and then 15 minutes with an opening statement, whatever. And it's a lot of information to be brought. But when you deal with, you can't deny when you deal with, you know, when you understand about Jericho, you deal with the written side of Jericho. This is, if you know the history of it, this is something that they did not know prior to, that Jericho was a fictional city until the biblical text was brought forth, and that is the only written documents that we actually got on Jericho, and you know, so that's the only evidence that we got. You know, no other evidence.
I mean, but you're saying Jericho, but you know, like what the brother said, and I was actually biased towards you on the debate. I kind of, you know, wanted you to win the debate because I'm not. Atheism is a European construct created by Europeans for the maintenance of white supremacy. So I kind of was biased towards you, but it was just like, you know, it's hard to prove. You put yourself in a corner, you box yourself in, because the Bible is greater than those people that you believe are historical figures. The Bible is greater than that. You got to use all your arsenal. The prophecies is the strongest point. The book is a book of prophecy. So it's kind of like you box yourself in to a Eurocentric paradigm, you know, by saying that, well, they control the material things of the universe, so they could tamper with it and alter things, and, you know, even if these people were historical figures, you know what I'm saying? So it was kind of boxed yourself in on that one. But, you know, like I said, I agree with your premise, but then you was asking him questions about, you know, certain texts that he don't. You was trying to equate, like, Egyptology with atheism, and that's, once again, a mistake, because not all Egyptology
I disagree with what you're saying, because whenever you talk about archaeology and you don't know anything about the ages, and then you don't know anything about the chronology, those things are are related. So if you don't know anything about those, how can I actually? There's only so much I could bring.
No, I'm saying, like, you know, you're saying, like, atheism. Atheism is just he don't believe. You know, he's an atheist. He don't believe that God exists.
Okay, so this is my question though. How can you deal and talk about there is no archaeological evidence of Israel, but you're not even dealing with the archaeology? You don't even know what consists of archaeology. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. Yeah, I see where you're going with that. But the way it sounded though, the way it sounded though, it was just like you was asking him, did he know? He don't have to know that. You know what I'm saying? The only thing he got to know, it was the burden of proof was on you, like to be able to explain.
He does have to know that. In other words, if you come and bring me an argument and you saying that I'm guilty or I'm a suspect, you got to have some evidence, right? So if you come to me and you tell me there is no archaeology proof of Israel and you don't know what archaeology consists of, come on now, archaeology consists of dating by ages, dating by chronology, you know what I'm saying? And also rock dating, and also pottery dating. And when you deal with pottery dating is it deals with the ages, and that's how we date pottery is through the ages, because what was similar by the ages of when man started dealing with stone, when man started dealing with metals, and the different types of metals to build. Because when they start dealing with stones, then they start realizing this stone got metal in it, so they start making materials out of the metal that was in the stone. So these are ages, and you must deal with chronology that's built off of these things and that's built off of evidence. And one of the things that we find out is this, that Kathleen, she said that there's no historical evidence for Israel, because why? Because when they came to Jericho, there was no Jericho according to the chronology. But she didn't base it off of the evidence, she based it off of the chronology. And the chronology
Let me let Shelton Henderson. You want to say anything? You want to jump in there, Scott?
Well, yeah. Well, a few things do respond to that. You know, just real quick, I don't want to veer off on the subject, but atheism has nothing to do with European anything. It's just a statement of non-belief or not enough evidence to believe. So all of that other stuff is not. And then, you know, and until it's a very individual thing. So I think, brother, I can inform him that, you know, that's a blanket statement and it doesn't apply. So it doesn't apply to everybody.
I mean, it's a European construct. I mean, only the European, when you look at history, only the European, it was developed through the minds of Europeans for the maintenance of white supremacy. I mean, that's historical.
Well,
we could debate that topic.
Yeah, well, we can, but I disagree with you. But no, to respond to LaRon saying that you don't know what archaeology is. I mean, please, of course I know what archaeology is. And like I said, you have to prove your case. You're stuck on Jericho, and it's just like the debate is about even say if you could prove that what happened in Jericho worked, then how does that prove that everything else?
Yeah, how does that prove even that the Israelites exist? Because you proved Jericho was there, But it's like like he explained it. I think he explained it better now than what he did on the actual debate. I think he was going and saying, like, proving that you don't know nothing about archaeology, so you're not even in a position to say that the Israelites don't exist, which would have been a good point, but I didn't really get that, out of the debate, But, his premise was, he would retorted and said that, well, you got to prove of this, Abraham, Moses, and all these people exist. Like, you got to prove that they existed because those are the people, that, we call the children of Israel. And it's like, I don't really think that you did that, you know what I'm saying? It's, so, you know what I mean? It was close. It was close, and I was kind of biased towards, G consciousness, but it was like, I don't think that it was enough, evidence. It was, you box yourself in. You never box yourself in with what your strong points is, which would be the Bible. And it's like, it's like he got you out of that paradigm and into this box of Eurocentrism, where you say you got to prove, knowing damn well that this cracker done tampered with evidence and destroyed a whole lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? So now he's saying, prove it.
Oh, yo, come on, James. You dropped the curse word, brother. Can't do that. All right, man. Gotta move on, man. But LaRon, you can reply, brother. Go ahead. LaRon or Shelton, either one of y'all, you can reply. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I want to say something real quick. Once again, you know what I'm saying. The main argument is can we find a historical Israel? And yes, we can, because we have historical information that was written by Israel. And nobody else had this information, and this was fictional to these people. You see what I'm saying? So then when we deal with certain things that's in the text that he has not even read yet, I mean, and with the information that I'm bringing, you so limited on time, there's only so much vital points and strong points that I can bring. So my main thing was to put him in one area so he couldn't jump to the other areas, because number one is, you have to get past this area. You got to get past Jericho, the conquest. If you can't get past Jericho, the city of Hazar, and also Jericho, and how these cities was destroyed, and there's no other accounts but the written history that we have is in the text, then you have a problem then.
Yeah, Shelton, you can reply, then we got to move on. Go ahead, Shelton.
Well, yeah, I'll just make a quick reply. Well, like I said, you had the opportunity to present evidence, and you didn't do it. So, I mean, that's the whole point. It's like, your argument is on trial, and, whatever time it takes, you have to truncate your message or whatever you need to do to get your point out. And like I said, even if everything you said was true, that still doesn't prove that the Israelites, you haven't provided a conclusive case. You use one archaeologist who actually is the foundation for a school of thought that discredits the Bible. So, you did come without, you have to, and if you quote scriptures, and that's your only source, then I'm sure that you would not accept if I told you that the Book of Mormon was true, and the reason the Book of Mormon is true is because it says it's true. You wouldn't accept that. You would say, like, that's not right.
All right, once again, guys, you're listening to Debate Talk U Radio, and you're officially inside the Lions. And And this is the public Q&A time where you, the listening audience, will call in with your questions and your comments. We got to keep it clean, though. Keep it clean, keep it professional. The number is 646-716-7320, and press the number 1, and I'll add you in the conversation. Let's go to the next person. Let's go to 716-563. You're live there.
Hey, peace and blessings. This your boy Zadok Ben Israel, representing the Knesset of Jesus, coming out of Buffalo, New York. How you, Brother Sal?
Hey, what's going on, Zadok? How you feeling, brother?
Man, I'm all right, man. What's going on, LaRon?
Peace, Zadok. Peace, brother.
What's good? And Brother Shelton, how you doing this evening?
I'm great, thank you, brother. You too.
I want to say that I understand where Brother LaRon was going with his argument, and he was starting to break down, I guess you could call them historical markers that would give validity to the things written in the Scripture as being true. Now, I don't think that it would be fair to say that every single thing has to be proven. Like the brother brought up some things that are fantastic, like a snake that talks and a donkey talking to someone and, stuff like that. Things that were written of, but of course there's no archaeological evidence to prove a donkey spoke. Someone would just have to believe that or not. The same way that we are told, and the brother did say he accepts evolution earlier, the brother Shelton, but there is no transitional fossil out of all, and that's why it's still called a theory to this day. It has not been upgraded to the evolutionary fact. It is still the evolutionary theory. The transitional fossil of man being transitioned from some monkey or amoeba to man doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist, and this is why it's still in theory form to this day. It's a 200 to 300-year-old concept that has been used by some modern man to try to trump thousands of years of belief in history to make it seem as if the ancients were primitive in their thought and design. So I want to ask the brother Shelton this on the atheist tip. I do believe that the biggest thing on trying to disprove Israel's existence or any of the progenitors of Israel, like Abraham and Isaac or Jacob, is because of the disbelief in God. If God wasn't involved, Israel wouldn't get questioned as much. But since they are a people so close to God and claiming a history with some points that are too fantastic for men to comprehend, I can see where discrediting the people gets linked to discrediting God. So if we just keep it people, for instance, I want to ask the brother Shelton this. Brother Shelton, do you believe that Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, was an actual king who ruled the first known world empire, according to historical writing?
If there's historical evidence that supports that, I would have no reason not to believe it. I deal with evidence and factual information, so it has nothing to do with God or anything of what the beliefs a person holds. If they're able to present a comprehensive case with real life evidence that can be verified and other information that brings in, that supports it, I believe it. I would have every reason to believe it.
Okay. And I'm glad you answered like that. I appreciate you being honest. The reason why I asked is because I also do believe that Nebuchadnezzar was the first great king of the empire that's considered the first world-dominating empire. Egypt was powerful, but it wasn't like a world dominator in the sense that Babylon, Persia, Greece, and eventually Rome were. And the reason I ask this is because even though there are stelas about him, there are inscriptions found in the ancient Babylonian digs about him, they don't have his actual body, like a tomb, like, for instance, like they got King Tut. I think they found some, Akhenaten or Ramses, whoever they found. All of these, some of the great Egyptian kings, even though all the Egyptian dynasty kings haven't been found bodily, no one doubts they existed because there are some glyphs written about them and some historians write about them and things like that. So even though there is no body for Nebuchadnezzar that's in a tomb anywhere or that in a tomb that's been found or on display in any museum, that wouldn't be enough to discredit that Nebuchadnezzar didn't exist because, as you said, there are things that have been found as far as historical inscriptions about him, even other nations who said, we fought King Nebuchadnezzar, we lost, we won. That would be enough, even though you don't have his body, right?
Yes, it would be enough.
Okay, now, I just, And I wanted to ask you about this guy, Hannibal, the great Carthaginian warrior who almost brought Rome, the city of Rome, to its knees. He is purported by many to be a great historical figure. But we do know that the only literary work on the Carthaginians is actually the Romans writing of him attacking. There are no actual Carthaginian literary scrolls, papyri, or anything that exists that would say the Carthaginians wrote that we went and attacked Rome. The only way we know about Hannibal is because the Romans said he came and attacked us and we fought him off. So without there being any literary, and I mean you could do the research on your own time and, and find this out, the Carthaginian history is only told by the people they attacked, not by them themselves, nor are there any bones of Hannibal, his generals, or anything like that we have today in any museum or anything of that nature. So that wouldn't exclude him from being a historical figure, even though the only information we got about him is the Romans saying what he did against them.
Yeah, okay,
that existed.
Excuse me. Well, like I said, if there's enough information, and one key thing that you said and the people that you mentioned was nobody in that that you mentioned is claiming to be a deity or is running things, and that the world was created by Hannibal or Nebuchadnezzar, and that
right.
You have to follow that. So it's like, so why not accept it? Why not? It's not doing anything. But when you start talking about the Bible and the Israelites, God chose these people in the middle of the desert over everybody else on this earth, and that you got that. That's a whole another level of evidence that needs to be provided. And
now,
if I can,
I'm sorry. No, go ahead, brother. I'm sorry for cutting you.
If I can real quickly respond to what you said about evolution. If I could ask you just a quick question.
Yeah, please.
Say, for instance, you went to the doctor, right?
Yeah.
And the doctor told you that, okay, this medication that I have is derived from all the research that we've done in evolutionary biology. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Would you take that medicine?
Yeah, depending on if I trusted the medicine or not, I may or may not. But it would be a decision based on what I believed was credible or not, definitely.
Yeah, so but if it was a life or death thing, then you would take the medicine. You'd rather live. Humans, we'd rather live than die, right?
People would take something that's experimental without all that evidence. So I would say, depending on how I felt, I may take it or I may not. I know Jehovah's Witnesses who won't take blood transfusions and they died. So you know what I'm saying? So it definitely depends on the mindset of the person. But I think I understand the premise that you're putting out there, bro.
Yeah, the reason I say that because, when they say things about evolution, first of all, no disrespect, but it shows a lack of education, actually the definition of what evolution is and what a theory is, what a scientific theory is, not.
I know what a theory is, bro. I know what a theory is. The way
that you stated it was like it's a flimsy, it's like a hunch or something like that. And you talk
No. I think, I'm sorry, Brother Shelton, but respectfully, I think you took it that way just because I said it hasn't been upgraded to fact. Anything that's called a theory is still, for instance, there is no theory of physics. There is only the law of physics. So I'm just saying that the law of evolution doesn't exist, just the theory of it, because it's still not a 100% proven thing. And what Charles Darwin did with the adaptation of species isn't necessarily a fully proven work. It's a great attempt through experiment and hypothesis, but it is not a fully proven fact because it's not. Put it like this: it hasn't been made law yet. So that's really what I was saying. That it is still a research to be determined, and I don't want to hold up time. So I do thank you for your answer, and I just wanted to put this one thing that you took to consider with the and if you take it outside the realm of God and this, that, and the third. I don't think the thing tonight was about God. I think you guys' debate was archaeological proof for the existence of the Israelites as a historical people. And I think what I just put on the table to you was two historically known or historically accepted entities, Hannibal, Carthage, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. You have no tombs for these men. You don't have their bones, but you do have people who wrote about them, or you have some things they wrote that have been found as evidence for their existence. And I wanted to put out there to you that outside of the 1830 find of the tomb of Ramesses and his stelas and all his glyphs that show all of his great might and how he fought people, do you know that up to that time when they found his tomb, the word Hattai, the Hattai army that he claimed to defeat, the Egyptologists did not know what the word Hattai meant. Not until 30, 40 years later when they actually found the Hittite cities for the first time. But ever since the evolutionary theory was put on the table, do you know that for 200 years they actually tried to dismiss the Hittites as a biblically made-up empire and people that never existed? And even when they found the Ramesses inscription of the Hattai, they couldn't decipher it to be the Hittite. So what I'm saying is that the only historical writings that you have on the Hittite as a people, the names of their kings or anything, or their cities, is the Bible outside of one mention of them when Ramesses claimed that he defeated them. But now that they found the Hittite inscriptions, they know that the Hittites say, no, we fought to a draw. So basically the same, I don't think that it's wise to say that if I can't find Abraham's bones, show me Jacob's bones, show me Isaac's bones, that you can use that to dismiss the existence of a people when scientists from 100 years ago would actually have to shut their mouths that today the Hittites are a people that for 2,300 years the mention of them in their cities and their kings was only known in the Bible until we found an inscription in the 1830s where Ramesses mentioned that he fought war against them. And if you be honest, I would think that you would have to be fair in giving credit that at least that, you could point to other things being a lie, but historically you could say that is historical proof, that is proof that the Bible has historical accuracies about people who probably still haven't been found. So I just wanted to put that out there to you for fairity, and I thank you for putting up with me and giving me that 10-minute back and forth with you. Good job, Brother LaRon. Thanks, Sal. I plan on seeing you on the 17th, my brother.
No doubt, my brother, no doubt. Shelton Henderson, you can reply briefly, and LaRon will let you reply as well. Go ahead.
Okay, just real briefly on that, I'll just address the evolution thing real fast. There's no such thing as scientific facts. It's the highest level of in science, the scientific theory, like the theory of gravity and germ theory. Those are the highest because the facts have been verified. Real quick on the transitional fossils, that's not evolution, what the brother was talking about, something turning into something else. So I would encourage him to actually, as he encouraged me to read, I encourage him to read about transitional fossils and what actually evolution is. And lastly, when he mentioned the other two examples he gave me, that's fine. Neither one of those two examples are asking you to believe things that are illogical, like sun standing still in the sky, which is talked about in the Bible, and other things like that. So it's a lower why not believe the information that you have? If you have information about it, that's fine. But tonight was about providing evidence for the Israelites, not that Jericho, the walls fell from an earthquake. And I'll yield from that one.
LaRon, you can go ahead.
Yeah, like I say, as you can see that Brother Zadok he understands and he knows about the archaeology and he knows exactly what I was saying. And he put it better. He's a better speaker than me. But he definitely understood what I was saying because, like I told him, you can't write something out as not being a historical events or being historical, and when this is the only mention. And then, like I told him before, you have archaeologists that said that there was this cities was fictional. So when you got people that 200 years later, and then he mentioned the outer source, which is the Babylonians, I didn't really even deal with that because there's outer sources of Israel, but I wanted to keep everything 600. I'm gonna say I wanted to keep everything 10,000 BC. And up for reals. I mean, and earlier. That's what I want. That was my goal. That's what I wanted to do because he's saying that his argument is that you can't find anything of Israel until you get to around 600 BC, probably in that area. Because I've heard that argument. It's regurgitated for reals. So I definitely agree with Zadok with the information that he brought, And for those that know anything about archaeology, that know anything about historical history, he doesn't understand this. He doesn't really understand that. You can't say something's not historical when it's written. That's just like with all information. How do you know these people actually got the translation or transliteration to this information that we got right now? They didn't speak the languages that we got right now, but you still take their concepts and their archaeology. And once again, I'm going to say this one last thing. If you notice, this guy never mentioned those archaeologists that excavated in Jericho. He never did that. They excavated after Kathleen and also John and Ernest Still. He never mentioned any of those. And I'm going to end it with that.
All right, we got to go to the people. We got a lot of people patiently standing by. I appreciate the patience. And, I'm letting the information being put out there. There's a lot of good information. So, and I'm aware that people are taking down some notes. So that's why I'm letting a lot of the dialogue go down. I appreciate your patience. But let's go to the next person. Let's go to 305-924. You're live in the air.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy Rodnetta.
Hey, what's going on, Rodnetta?
All right. I'm sitting there listening. And I just got one point to make regarding all the archaeological information and the dialogue that the brother's making. But let's be clear on a few things, because when you speak of the Israelites, let's understand where the word Israelite originated from. The word it originated from Jacob. According to the scripture, he wrestled with an angel, and God found favor in him and named him Israel. Now, let's be clear that these are fictitious characters that's in the Bible. So if Jacob is a fictitious character and this so-called God named him Israel, a fictitious character, that's going all the way out of the realm. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you go to Galatians 4:22, it clearly states that the story of Abraham and his two sons and his wife and his concubine was all symbolic. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, now, after the literature has been put in place, it's real easy to go ahead and create some type of archaeological information based on the scripture. You know what I mean? I'm not really with all the information that the brothers are putting out about different historical events that happened, but I do know that from the biblical text, these people are fictitious characters. And like I say, I'm just one of the brothers to respond to that as far as, these biblical characters, because like I say, if you're saying that Isaac, Ishmael, if you look at Ishmael, if you go into the Quran and go to Islam, they speak of Ishmael as being the founder of Islam. But all these are fictitious characters. So now we're looking at actual facts and actual historical events that's only coming out of Egypt, or coming out of Africa. So where's all these writings and all these things are coming from? You know what I mean? So I just want to sit back. I just want to hear what everybody got to say about that.
Let's start with LaRon. Go ahead, LaRon.
Yeah, he tried to pull a quick one when he tried to say that the book of Galatians talked about it as being an allegory. The book of Galatians never talked about Abraham being an allegory. He said that the covenants was an allegory of what was dealing with Abraham, not that Abraham was an allegory. He was saying these two covenants are allegory of Abraham, basically. You know what I'm saying? It deals with Abraham. He said this is an allegory. It deals with Abraham. In other words, the two covenants was an allegory of what actually took place with Abraham. Well, what is that saying? What took place with Abraham was, and his son Isaac and Ishmael, was a covenant was made to Abraham that his son should be the heir, which was Isaac, and the other covenant that was made was dealing with. The other covenant was made was dealing with Ishmael. He was given a covenant too, but he was not supposed to be the heir. So he tried to pull a slick one. Then when you talk about fictional characters and stuff like that, once again, I'm going to bring this up to date and bring this up to speed. Common sense, we look out. We got people that are related far as Islam, far as Jews, far as these other different cultures that believe on these things and actually are fighting over these things. And these people have been fighting for centuries dealing with this stuff and with this information. Before his grandma can even count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They've been doing these things. So am I supposed to believe what you're saying when these people are in the land and have the antiquities of all this information of Egypt, of Mesopotamia? Islam control all of those things. The Arabs control all of those things. So your argument is folly and it's just foolishness for real. Some about fictional characters. I'm saying, but you'll send your kids to public school and they'll give you fictional doctrine or fictional science.
Shelton Henderson.
Yeah, well, actually, I agree with the brother because, and I think LaRon already agrees with him as well because earlier in our debate, LaRon acknowledged that there were copyists and redactors, editors that went back and wrote these stories, and he gave an example. The example he gave was if he was talking about, he wouldn't say Africa today. Now, if he wrote Africa talking about something that happened before, then you know that he's writing from today. And he already acknowledged that copyists and redactors wrote these stories. They wrote them in their time. That's why you have the contradictions and anachronisms because, they're writing about camels, and camels didn't exist. So they're talking about Abraham had all these camels, but at the time he was supposed to have these camels, they weren't even domesticated yet. So it's actually better to understand it that way. That these stories were written for a reason to promote. It's just like I think I heard a debate. Actually, I was listening to a conversation that you had, LaRon, with some brothers on YouTube. When you understand that it's genre, these writings were genre. Like we understand if we open a book and we read a chapter, okay, well this is fiction, or well this is science fiction, or this is nonfiction. We understand, okay, now I understand this is the genre in which they were writing. So they utilize these stories to make a higher point. It's not to say, okay, yeah, but all these characters existed. No, it may be the story to say, well, we believe in interacting with the Creator in this particular way, face-to-face. And another school of thought may be, well, we believe that you need an intermediary. So that's why we have the Divine Council of El, with his angels or, which are just like lesser gods, which come from the other cultures in that area. I mean, all they did was borrow from everything around them. So I think it would be well served to consider that and not, take things literally because you won't be able to defend because you have to go back and say, well, and that's what happened with the archaeologists in Israel who they're Israeli citizens. So that's so hard to overcome. It's like it would be better for them to say, well, let's hide this stuff because it's going to knock out the reason that we're here. No, they're being honest and saying, like, well, what we're finding is not comporting to reality. This is what it is now. Let's view it for what it is. It's stories, it's allegory, it's the reflection of the cultures at that time and how they believe things, and that's all it is. It's not about going and finding people because they didn't exist.
All right, Ronetta, any last words you want to share, Ronetta? Go ahead, real quick.
Yeah. Let me get the first brother out. I just got on that kind of late, but he made a statement as far as the two sons being a covenant. Although that's true, but you got to understand the mothers, Hagar and Sarah, both represented freedom and bondage through mountains. The whole time I'm listening now, I'm hearing the word game. You playing the word game, playing the locations. You getting data from some source that's these sources are not. This information is not for us. We're trying to create than what we really are, and we all African. Say our people, our people.
I appreciate that, my brother. Appreciate that. Right now, we gotta run out of time, my brother. Appreciate that, though. We gotta go to the next person. Let's go to 678-544. You live in air.
A water swordsman, aka the fireman. You spark it off and put you out. And this is what I want to say this. This is what the brother Shelton don't understand. Okay, prophecy supersedes all wisdom and knowledge of man. Let me read this. This is Isaiah 42, verse 8 and 9. I'm the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images. It says, behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare before they spring forth. I tell you of them. So let's examine what the Lord told Moses about the situation of the children of Israel, why we can't see their existence as far as artifacts and relics today. I'm going to go to Deuteronomy 32, verse 26. I said I will scatter them into corners. I will make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. The brother hit you with a powerful scripture, Psalms 83. He told you it was a conspiracy to conceal the evidence of these people. This took hiding the artifacts, the different relics. There was a conspiracy to hide all that stuff. Okay? Now, what gives us evidence of the children of Israel are the prophecies. When you read Deuteronomy, tell everything that was going to go down with these people. So you go to Deuteronomy and you track Deuteronomy and see that these things happen. See, the Lord's word supersedes everything. Now I'm going to read, this is your problem, and I'm going to go. This is 1 Corinthians 2, verse 13. It says, which things also we speak not in the words which man's wisdom teaches. See, you deal with man's wisdom. These so-called scholars, they're not scholars. They can't deal with the Spirit of the Lord. And it says, but which the Holy Spirit teaches, compared spiritual things with spiritual. But the natural man, this is you, but the natural man receives not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. You think this Bible is foolishness, but I'll say this, that every prophecy in this Bible is coming to pass. You can believe it or not believe it. It's coming to pass. And with that, I'm going to say shalom.
All right, shalom. Shelton Henderson, you can reply. Go ahead.
Well, I wish the brother was there because I had a question to ask him.
He's still there. Yeah, he's still there. He's still there. Go ahead.
Okay.
He's still there.
Let me ask you something, brother. Do you believe the Book of Mormon?
Yes.
You believe the Book of Mormon?
Oh, say it again. I dropped my earphone. Say it again.
Do you believe the Book of Mormon? You believe Joseph Smith went into a cave and spoke with the
angel?
No, I don't believe that.
No, I don't believe that. I believe that's a book that was taken out of the Bible. I believe that. I don't believe what he said, his testimony, no.
Oh, okay. I asked you, do you believe in the Book of Mormon?
I said, yeah.
Okay, you do realize that he wrote the Book of Mormon?
Well, I heard the story about it, not too tight about, but I don't believe his testimony. Because when you ever read the whole book of Mormon? Did you ever read it?
No, I didn't read the whole. I've read it, yeah, but not the whole thing.
You didn't read the whole thing?
I asked you a question. Do you believe? He wrote the Book of Mormon. He said he went into a cave with the angel Moroni, and was given.
I don't believe that part. I don't believe that.
Okay, so you don't believe the Book of Mormon?
No, I don't believe his testimony. I didn't say I didn't believe, because you read. As I asked you, did you read the whole Book of Mormon? Because if you didn't, you can't really reply on it.
Well, I'm asking you a question.
When you read it, it pairs up with the Bible. When you read a lot of stuff in it, it pairs up with the Bible. That's why I believe it's a book that was taken out of the Bible. That's what I believe. I don't believe his testimony.
Okay. So if I okay. The fact of the matter is that he said he went into a cave and got the plates from the angel Moroni to write the Book of Mormon. So
yeah. There's a lot of people that are trying to take credit. Yeah, I don't believe his testimony. But when I looked at the Book of Mormon, I paired it up with the scriptures. That's what I do. I paired it up with the scriptures, and I believe it's a book that was taken out of it. Now, his testimony, I don't believe that. Everybody's trying to do that.
You believe that the Book of Mormon was taken out of the Bible?
Yeah, one of the books that were taken out. Like you heard of the Apocrypha, right? You ever heard of the Apocrypha?
Of course.
That's a book of the Bible that was taken out. And it confirmed everything that the Bible's saying. It's talking parallel with the Bible. That's how I do it. Now, I ain't listening to what he say. I don't never listen to what no man say. I'm seeing does it pair the Bible. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll just leave it there. The angel Moroni and Joseph Smith going into a cave. You believe an angel was in a cave and gave him the golden plates, and he wrote it down.
That sounds something like what Muhammad said. Something similar. He had a divine intuition.
A lot of people in the Bible went into caves and got information. So my response to you is this: like, the reason I put that example out there is because you're quoting, stuff to me that, what do you know about what you just quoted to me?
Let me say this.
Let me just understand what I'm saying, bro.
Uh-huh.
The reason I asked you that question is because you're quoting lines to me and which have no connection with me. You understand? You're reading something from a book that, can you tell me the writer of the book, background information about the book, and do you have anything that corroborates what it says? Otherwise, it's just what you believe. It's not what I believe. So I wanted to make you aware that when you quote that, that's just like you quoting, a book that you don't believe in. Okay, somebody's religion you don't believe in, you would dismiss it. So
can I make a point? That's what I'm saying about prophecies. Okay, if this book did not have prophecies, meaning the Lord, that's why I read that scripture. He said, this is what's going to happen. This is what happened. This is what's going to happen. This is the only reason why I picked this book up, because he gives his word on what he said. There's no other book on the planet that can do that. That's why the so-called white man have this book in his courthouse, because the Quran can't do it. I done asked many Muslims, give me prophecy on my people, their position as of the day when it was written way before it came to pass. Nobody can do it. We got warfare in here. We got atomic bombs in the Bible. Everything that's on the earth going on is in this book. That's why I said I deal with this book. Now, can you give me evidence of your existence or where your forefathers come from? What is your source? What is your source of belief? And I'm going to leave it with that. Sure.
I'll answer that question, and I want to respond, as well. If a book that you don't believe in, you wouldn't, we just dismiss it. As far as my beliefs is concerned, I don't see where it's relevant, but, where I come from, my forefather, his name was Benjamin Pitt. My foremother was Elizabeth Henderson. And I can go down my family line. Those who my forefathers were.
All right, LaRon, we'll let you reply, but just to let the people know, we only have 4 minutes and 41 seconds on the air, guys. So if you're listening via internet, we're going to be off the air in the next 4 minutes. If you want to hear the rest of the show, you're going to have to call in. Dialing that number now, 646-716-7320 before the time runs out. If not, the show is archived. You can check it out later on. We're going to www.blogtalkradio.com/debatetalk4you. I appreciate all the people out there that's been tuning into this debate, and hopefully we see you guys next week. All right, all the Skype callers out there, I'm getting a lot of emails from the international listeners saying they can't call in. The only way for you to call in is by calling in via Skype. So if you're overseas and if you're listening to this debate, the only way you can call in is via Skype. The same number, 646-716-7320, and if you have a question, press the number 1. All right, LaRon, you can reply to that.
Yeah, I'm just listening to this guy when he gets to talking about claims as far as dating bones and then dealing with camels and different stuff like that. And we know that, that camels as well had to migrate from a certain place as well. We find bones. We find animals that's frozen in Antarctica with tropical fruit in their mouth. So just to say with assumption that camels offer fruit, a few scholars would disagree with that. We know that trade has been going on since the Neolithic times up into the Bronze Age. We know we have trade routes, and one of the major trade routes that we had was the Fertile Crescent. So it's a lot of things that we can't explain. Certain things we found in Egypt. It was there. They should never been there, but so his argument is kind of foolish with that for real. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, his stuff is regurgitated. They regurgitate the same information. Like you know how to deal with it because it's the same information for us. So.
All right. Once again, guys, if you're listening via Facebook, via internet, Blog Talk Radio, you have like 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the air. We're going to get cut off in the next a few minutes. So if you want to call in to hear the rest of the show, the number is 646-716-7320. We have more questions for the people. We're going to go to the final statements. So if you want to hear more of the show live, make sure you call in. All right, so let's go to the people. Let's go to 646-592. You're live on air.
Hey, peace, Brother Silas, Brother Garfield Reed here, man. And good debate. I'd say it's a draw, man. I'm not even gonna be biased to my boy LaRon, man. LaRon, let me tell you what the problem is with the debate tonight. The debate is about, I love LaRon. Me and LaRon go back. We cool on the Facebook with everything. But this is the problem with the debate. And what the brother did, and technically, if I didn't like LaRon, I'd have said the dude won. And I'm going to tell you why. The dude kept saying to LaRon, what is the debate about? It's to prove that Israelites existed. And LaRon, that's easy. That's the easiest thing to answer. So now when the brother had read the thing about Finkelstein and said 600 BC that they existed, he already answered the question. You didn't check him on that. When he said Finkelstein said that they probably existed such and such, that's his evidence. So he proved for you that Israelites existed. So you didn't. The debate was over right there. You could have just spotted him in that. Now you went into Joshua and Jericho. Yeah, we know that story is probably unique in some sort of way, and it's mixed with some ascetic stuff. Yeah. But that ain't got nothing to do with Israelites. You got to prove that they existed, because all the folks that you showed, there's nobody. You see what Brother Zadok just did? Zadok actually killed your argument, LaRon, because he's saying that because nobody's existed, nobody can account for Nebuchadnezzar and so forth. But the point of the matter is, nobody talked about Israelites, period. Nobody talked about them. If you're going to prove a point that Israelites existed, the guy, Shelton, he proved it for you when he read Israel Finkelstein, because Israel Finkelstein believed Israelites existed. He believed that, but he doesn't believe that the history is true. So my question would be now to LaRon, if Israelites existed, fine. Let's say they existed for me or your argument's sake. Which archaeologist on record you could tell me right now that says that the patriarchs existed? Tell me one archaeologist right now that says that. I'm not talking about David from David's time. I'm talking from Abraham, come all the way down. And I notice you said the Ebla tablets. I'm not going to go back and forth with you about the Ebla tablets, but I'll say this. I don't agree with nothing you said about the Ebla tablets. The Ebla tablets mentioned such and such, but we'll do that another time. We're not going to top it up about the Ebla tablets. I'll give you that tonight.
All right,
just tell me one archaeologist that said that the patriarchs existed.
Let me address something and real quick, and then I'm gonna address with one archaeologist. Okay, you said that number one is my thing, and this is what me and Shelton agreed upon, is I can prove that Israel existed in 600 BC and so forth. My thing was to prove, that we can see that's his argument. His argument and everybody's argument that you can't prove Israel 600 BC and down. I mean, 600 BC and earlier and up.
Okay.
So that's his argument. So I can easily prove that because I have synchronism in 664 BC with Assyrian kings. I can easily prove that. You know what I'm saying? But when we're dealing with the times of the patriarchs and we're dealing with the times, and one of the things what you said about the patriarchs, we have, for instance, we have a mention of David Rowe. The mention I gave you the David Rowe. I gave you the Bar Yosef. It deals with the waterway of Joseph and in 12th dynasty. So that with that and the waterway of Joseph, you have archaeologists that believe that the waterway of Joseph deals with Joseph making a canal to stop the famine that was in the land, which was due to the source of a high Nile. And that correlates and parallels with the biblical text, because the famine was the reason of the cows coming out the Nile in the first place, which causes Egypt to be rich in soil because of the Nile. So if there is a famine, it's due to either a lack of the Nile or either too much of the Nile. So I mean, I dealt with that.
Can I say I agree with you, LaRon? Can I say that to you real fast? Can I say I agree with you? But guess what happened now? The problem with your theory is this: there is no Bible to confirm in that time period before the Dead Sea Scrolls manuscript. There's no Bible. So that means the people who wrote the Bible, the redactors you like to brag about, could have heard about those stories from other cultures, brother. There's no writing. None exists. So if none exists, you have nothing to base it off of, because David Rowe, or whatever his name is, could be correct. I'm not saying he's wrong. He could say Uya was Joseph. He could say Imhotep. He could say whatever with his chronology. But the point of the matter is we can find documents with these real figures that existed. So the person who redacted the story could have stole that story from that person. That is my point. I'm not disagreeing with what you just said. I agree with you. I give you that. But that doesn't prove that the Bible is true. It just proves that somebody knew the story and wrote it down.
Your argument is built on the same premises that my argument is built on. For instance, when we deal with Kemet and we talk about Egypt, and when we deal with these other countries, we're getting this stuff on a secondary basis because it's not primary. Because number one is, how do we know that they translating this stuff to what it's supposed to be? You don't speak that language. We don't know half the people that speak it.
Don't disagree with you.
Hold on, brother. We don't know half of them people that speak them ancient languages. So your premises is built on the same thing. So when Zadok came in and Zadok gave the information that he gave, he was on point when he gave that information, because just because Egypt was known for prepare for the dead, just because they prepared their bodies for the dead, for the afterlife, doesn't mean other cultures was interested in that. And we know that, like he said, we know that Caesar was real. Can anybody show me his bones? So these other kings did not deal with these things, but Egypt dealt with these things because they was religious and they dealt with the preparing of the dead for their body. And we have adapted to a lot of things that they've done, as far as monuments with your name on.
But you know what, though? The brother that said the swordsman that used the Bible, and I need to put this out on the ear, let everybody hear. Anybody comes to you with Deuteronomy 28, it does not exist in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So the Dead Sea Scrolls don't have those scriptures with the curses. So the people need to stop coming on the ear and just putting out information. Oh, I'll go to the prophecy. It doesn't exist. Show us in the Bible. This is why the brother is saying to you, bring the information. Hold on. Let me ask Shelton a question. Hold on, LaRon. So don't turn into the LaRon Garfield show. Let me just ask the brother Shelton this. Brother Shelton, did LaRon ever bring to you that Israelites existed? Did he say that this person is an Israelite, or did he just tell you stories? Did he ever say to you one time that this person is an Israelite?
No, he didn't.
So how can you win the debate then? You can't win the debate, LaRon, if you don't say this person is an Israelite. You can't point to a Bible story. You can't do that. The information was great. I learned a lot. But you never said to him, this guy is an Israelite. You never said that.
Is there historical evidence of Israel? And I gave him historical evidence of Israel. Now, here's the fact. We can look around and see Israel today. If we see Israel today, and then we seen Israel back in synchronisms when you deal with the Assyrian kings, when you deal with Egypt, when you deal with all the other nations, the Hittites. Like he said, there's information that deals with the Hittites that we never seen until it was brought forth by the biblical text, which is the written authority for reals, until it was the hieroglyphs was broken, until the Babylonians mentioned warring with the Hittites as well. It was fictional. So your premises that you're building, saying that is Deuteronomy real, we're dealing with historical evidence, each one of us, from historical evidence that has been translated down to us, copied down to us, and you're not dealing with just one book. You have people that you think everybody that was scattered could have came to Egypt with this one book. There was copies of this book, just like there's copies of many books that get published out here. Who has the original? You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. Who has the original? But if the people are scattered, see, the premises that you guys are building, it's a gang of ignorance and clutter for real. Because when we bring it up to speed, when we make a book today, we don't just make one and expect everybody to pass this book around so we all can read it. That's crazy. No, we publish that book and we make copies of that book, and that's how the ancients did it.
Yeah, man. I heard that show, actually. That was Brother Garfield Reed right there. We're going to actually have him in the Lions Den, I believe, maybe a week or two from now, too. And I heard that show, LaRon, between you and him, too. A lot of powerful information on your show, LaRon Campbell's show, G Consciousness, was pretty powerful. But Shelton Henderson, you can reply to that.
Yeah, I think it's telling that the brother asked him a point-blank question, give me an archaeologist, and he didn't answer the question. I have my reply to the brother that said, that I gave, that I said that, Israel Finkelstein. No, I didn't say that. I said the writers of these stories were from from 500 to 800 to 900 BC, or the other way around. So that doesn't mean that I'm saying that they were Israelites and that the people exist. And Israel Finkelstein says that these people are Canaanites. You know, all he's finding and has found is Canaanite communities, and there's no differentiation. You see the same gods and goddesses that they worshipped. You see the same life. So the consensus among scholars is that these people who were written about were Canaanites. And when you find have on my site as well, my blog, there's a treasure trove of information. The actual gods and goddesses that were dug out the ground. The council of the divine council of El, also the Asherah goddesses that they were worshiping, and all those things are on display in museums. So these, when people say the Most High, El Elyon, the Most High God, people say the Most High God of what? The divine council of gods. They also have no other gods before me. These were all Canaanite-derived religious systems that whoever wrote the book and made up these people called the Israelites, which there is no archaeological evidence for. The archaeological evidence is for Canaanites, and the worship that they did was Canaanite worship. So the debate was not over when I said that, and I made sure that I said that the writers, and also LaRon agreed, because he said that the copies, I don't know why he's backing out of it now, he said that there were copyists and redactors and editors. So, what did they copy? They edited and massaged and
I didn't say that. I didn't say that, brother. You putting that in. I didn't say editors. I said copies, brother.
I'm speaking, brother. I'll be quiet. I'm quiet when you speak. Okay? So my point is that, he admitted that there are redactors and that they wrote these stories. They wrote these stories from a later time and created these stories. So, I don't know why he's backing out of it now. He admitted it multiple times this evening, and on a debate that I was on some time ago, he called in and he admitted it. So,
let me address him real quick. Number one is this brother just mentioned gods about El and different stuff like that. See, this is the problem right here. What this brother don't know is these gods, when Finkelstein is talking about Canaanites, what Finkelstein is ignorant of is these gods originate from Mesopotamia. What he don't realize is when you're dealing with the Canaan and you're dealing with West Akkadian, when you're dealing with West Akkadian and Eastern Akkadian, these guys came from Mesopotamia. When you deal with the Abaru or the Aperu, these are what you call wanderers. And the Hebrews was called wanderers just as well, or nomads from Mesopotamia, bruh. So when we dealing with these things, we must realize that these people came and basically came and invaded Egypt as well, and this is history, invaded Palestine as well, and Palestine began to take on some of those gods, and we still see those people today in these places. We still see Islam in Egypt, these people that originated from the East in Egypt. We still see these people in Palestine that came from the East, that's greatly associated with the East and from the continent of Asia and not Africa. So what is the problem, man?
All right, so we're in the overtime part of the show, so we pretty much got to take maybe one or two more questions, and after that we got to go to the final statements, guys. I wish I could get to every single person. I wish I could, but time doesn't permit. Let's go to 845-665. There.
Hey, what's going on, brothers and sisters? What's going on, my brother Shelton, brother LaRon? What's going on? It's brother Stanley, Send No More Ministry. Hope all is well.
Peace.
Yes, great debate, by the way. I just want to add a point there. I think that a lot of people are missing from all of this. When we're dealing with historical archaeology, evidence and stuff like that, and we're looking at writings and anything that's dealing with history, there's one thing that people have to consider that's being applied here to determine all of these things is faith. Faith is a key role in everything, which means to trust in something or someone.
That's what faith really means. It's a word that just means to trust. We're trusting people. We're trusting what they're saying. We're trusting the information they're giving. We're trusting that they're honest when they're doing it. We're trusting that when the team gets together, that one is verifying one another. We're hoping that they're not being biased when they're doing such a thing. Today, among historians, there are debates going on between one another. Not all of them agree on certain things about what happened in the past. But yet we use their writings and say, this is it. This is the truth. This is the war. So we have to be very, very careful when we're making use of archaeological findings, for or against my beliefs and things like that. But we have to keep this in mind. And all these things that we're calling facts, what's fact is that we see something in front of us. Why we call it fact is because we personally can verify it and be satisfied with it in our personal mind when we're looking at it. But when we were reading sources about something that we are not looking at or seeing, what's happening is we're trusting their word. We're taking their word for it. And we're calling that evidence. We got to be very careful. Now, step number 2 is that we have to conclude that evidence of something doesn't necessarily mean the thing is true. We got to get rid of that thought. You know, the courts go by that system. They go by evidence. And there's nothing wrong with that because generally speaking, it can be true. However, if any one of us was innocent of a crime that is that's been committed, and we've been accused of murder, and all the evidence points to us, no argument about it. To the point where if you were not you, and you were looking from the outside in, you would say you're guilty as well. That's how powerful the evidence is. However, guess what? You never murdered anybody. Do you know many people go to jail with the evidence pointing towards the innocent individual, and the person is still innocent, and they gone to jail, and they went through the thing, and the guilty one is outside? That happens many times in the justice system. You know why? Because evidence doesn't necessarily make things true. It is just the best thing we got or we have to say it correctly. So now, when we are looking at, we're dealing with this topic here based on these 2 principles, in faith and in evidence, we have to consider those things when we are looking at it. Now, we're reading these historical documents about Israel. I truly believe Israel. I believe, and I'm going to say honestly, I believe they existed. Now, if there's no evidence beyond the 600 BC and on, does that mean they didn't exist? No. It just means that we can't prove that they existed. But it doesn't mean that they didn't exist. One reason why I believe they existed is because, step number 1, it seems to me, based on my research of general history, the further back you go, less people were historians. They had a historical mindset, meaning they, in their present age, they didn't look to try to preserve something so they can remember themselves. The only thing that they usually do back then to preserve anything would be writing. That's about it. But today we go a lot beyond that. We have statues, paintings, and we do different things to try to keep these things going. So when we go back to times like George Washington, we can say, well, we don't have good evidence that George Washington existed. But if we were not doing that for ourselves, is a point in our life, we may say, 200 years from now, Brother Shelton didn't exist. Brother Shelton hasn't ever existed. What happened to his birth certificate? Oh, probably got washed away. We have no evidence of that. Does that mean he never existed? No, of course he existed. We just don't have much evidence to support it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. So I think we have to be very careful to base, when we're basing our faith on something, that we considering that faith is involved. That means we don't know something, but we're trusting other people involved. And at the same time, evidence does not always mean something is true or false. We just sometimes just have to rest our faith in a particular thing. And that's my call on that. Enjoy you guys tonight.
Peace, brother.
Shelton, you're going to reply. Go ahead, Shelton.
Yeah, well, I just have to say I disagree with probably 99.9 of what Stanley just said, because when he said about faith is strong belief without evidence and trusting.
That's not true. That's not true.
And that's what I reject. And yes, evidence has pointed towards people who, who have not committed crimes. Yes, that happens. But what do they get if they get off? What gets them off? Further evidence to the truth. So
if they get off.
I totally disagree with anything that's faith-based. If you're saying you trust someone without evidence, then that's not the way I would govern my life, and nor would I recommend that for anyone else. So, we need evidence. We need, if someone told you, somebody's in your house and you're in your bed sleeping, you're just going to say, well, no, they're not. You're going to get up and you're going to check it out. So, you're not going to just trust or somebody. If you hear somebody in your house, you hear something moving, somebody says, well, it's nobody there. He's like, well, I'm just going to go back to sleep. No, you're going to check it out. So that's my response to that. It should be encouraged people should be encouraged to research and gather evidence so that it puts them on solid footing, not the other way around, not just trusting. I wouldn't want anybody, if there are people listening that they're on the fence to just trust what I said. No, follow up, visit websites, challenge, criticize, dissect. Don't just accept it because I said it, because don't trust me, I'm not going to trust anybody with telling me. I'm going to research. If the brother told me earlier about this Kathleen Kenyon, so I'm not going to just sit here and not look her up. No, I'm in front of a computer. I can look up who she is. So I'll leave it at that.
LaRon? Go ahead, LaRon.
Yeah, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. What we must realize is there is evidence of things not seen, and that's even dealing with the scientific aspect of it. And there is a substance of those things that are not seen. So when we rely on, even when he said he's an atheist and he deal with evolution, one part of evolution, but he couldn't explain other parts of evolution because there's different parts of evolution, then we must realize that he's relying on evidence that's not seen just as well. And that's what faith is, because he has not seen the missing link. So he has, he doesn't have accurate information. I mean, he doesn't have the full accurate information. And one of the things we must realize is this. He talked about, for instance, he talked about scientific stuff. One thing that we must realize about man has the ability to make from what the Creator has created. But when he makes from what the Creator has created, there's side effects that come along with it. That's because his calculations is not precise. So there's side effects. So he makes another problem because he is not the one who has the proper calculations. So this brother right here, man, he has to know what faith is, because when you talk about evolution, you're dealing with faith. You have a lack of evidence with that faith. The earth is still revealing things. We don't have the full information that we know of the earth, nor of the heavens when we deal with cosmic evolution. We only know 1% of the universe. We haven't been to those places. We haven't touched those places. We only go by that word of what they say.
Can I respond quickly?
You're good.
Hello, everybody there? Okay,
Yeah.
I would just want to address Brother Shelton's definition of faith. And I'm sorry to have to do this, but it seems to me that, generally speaking, atheists have a common knowledge of creating definitions, and they hold on to that definition as if we all agree that this is our definition, and then they build their arguments on that particular definition of the word. Faith has multiple definitions, and I want everybody that's listening in, all you have to do is open up a dictionary. Don't take my word for it, like Brother Shelton said. Open up a dictionary. The very first definition that is mentioned is confidence or trust in a person or thing, period. That is the very first definition. Now, if we're going by that definition, it doesn't matter whether or not there's evidence or no evidence. To say faith means, which is the second definition, there's a belief that is not based on proof. Now, that is the definition that Shelton is hanging on to when he hears the word faith. I'm not focusing on number 2. I'm focusing on number 1. Now, if you're going by number 1, it is still faith, whether there's evidence or not. There's still faith, and as long as you are trusting something. The word trust is a synonym to faith. Do we trust people? Yes. That's faith. I don't care whether there's evidence or not. If we understand faith in multiple definitions and understand the way it's being applied, then we're going to stop falsely stop using straw man fallacies to address a particular argument.
All right, Brother Stan, man, I apologize, brother. We got out of time. But Shelton Henderson, you reply quickly, and after that, we got to move on. Maybe take 2 more quick comments from the people. Go ahead, Shelton.
Okay. Well, he said, I'm stuck on a definition, and it's not the right one. Then he goes and reads the definition that I said. So, I mean, I'm going to respond to that. He said, hey, I'm getting stuck on the definition, and number 2 is the actual definition that I gave. So, I don't think there's anything else to say on that.
All right, I got to go to the people for quick comments. Just quick comments. If you have a quick comment, just press number 1, and after that, we're going to go to the final statement. So we're going to take some quick comments for now. Just quick comments, and after that, we're going to go to the final statement part of this debate. Let's go to 615-578. Quick comments.
Peace, Brother Sal. This is Lex Vortex, man, and I'm the atheist and the Kemetic killer. And when I listen to stuff like this, man, it's so painful when people speak intellectual like they're scientifically educated. In terms of the debate about whether there's Israelites, to me that's a silly debate. You can go to Africa and see the Beta Israel. They've been there, and their oral tradition goes back thousands of years. You got Israelites all over the planet today. The proof is right here in front of your face. You wouldn't argue whether Santa Claus existed or not. You can't even have that debate. That would be a silly debate. But this brother said something about science, and he made a statement that said, man, y'all are uneducated about science, but he's telling me he's an evolutionist. And he's making the people think that he's educated about science. Now, if you know anything about science, and this is my question to the brother Shelton, there is no such thing as science that's not operational. That means that if you know the science of electricity, I can demonstrate it. That means I can hook up a light bulb. If I know the science of aerodynamics, I can fly a plane. Now, in evolution, life comes out of chemicals first, right? Before you get the single cell. You tell me operationally where they have produced a single cell out of chemical compounds and have ever produced life out of non-life if you are a scientist.
Did you hear me say I was a scientist?
You told the other brother that he made a statement about evolution, and you said, you need to read, brother. You don't really know evolution theory, and you said scientific theory was the highest. And you said you made statements about evolution, and then you asked the brother, if someone told you they would give you a pill based on evolutionary biology, would you take it? Like that was some fantastic saying. There is no pill based on evolutionary biology. The only biology that medicine is made of is what they can observe from the body right now today. So I'm asking you, you talked about faith. You said without evidence, we shouldn't look at anything. If someone told you something was in your house. So I'm asking you, evolution is based on the fact that life comes from non-life, meaning chemical compounds. If you say that you are intelligent and you want to base the fact Israelites don't exist because there's no evidence, I want you to show me where scientifically evolution has been reproduced. There is no science that it is not reproduced. And scientists have been trying to reproduce the theory of life coming out of inorganic matter forever. Check out the Russian experiment with the fruit flies. Check out, scientists have been trying to mess with the cosmic soup and produce one single cell. It has never been done. Now, you as a man who says he's intelligent and doesn't believe anything based upon belief, you show me where they have proven how to bring forth life out of this inorganic chemical compound. That would be called non-operational science.
All right, Shelton Henderson, you know, we got to save that for your final statement, brother. You save that for the final statement. We got to try to get to a few more quick comments, and after that, we got to go to the final statement. It's kind of run out of time. Let's go to 510-689. You're live on the air.
Shalom, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for the show. It was really good, and like a lot of other people said, I kind of was biased. I was hoping that there would that the brother would offer like more, archaeological or historical evidence proving that, that Israelites did exist. And someone mentioned it, a really good source, but they didn't go into it, and that is the Dead Sea Scrolls, that were found at the Qumran caves. And I just wanted to share briefly how that definitely serves as archaeological proof that the Israelites exist, that there were between 1947 and 1956, 11 Qumran caves yielded a dozen scrolls written on leather and one embossed on copper. Most scrolls are written in Hebrew, a smaller portion in Aramaic. Among the texts previously known, all the books of the Hebrew Scriptures are extant, at least in fragments. Even Daniel, the most recent work to enter the Palestinian canon in the mid-2nd century BCE, is attested to by 8 manuscripts. The caves have yielded some of the Apocrypha, i.e. religious works missing from the Hebrew Scriptures. Caves number 4 and 11 reveal the book of Tobit in Aramaic and in Hebrew. There's just information from Masada, and if somebody wants to debate the authenticity of the Scriptures, there's the actual community of the Judeans that were living there in Qumran. There's a book that talks about them. It gives a lot of information about them, that these clearly were Israelites. It speaks that they were perfectly obedient to each and every one of the laws of Moses and to all that was commanded by the prophets. They were to love one another and to share with one another their knowledge, powers, and possessions. They were to study the Torah in the wilderness and thereby atone for the land and its wicked men for whom they were to nourish an everlasting hatred. So that right there, I believe that would serve as a sort of archaeological evidence that Israelites existed. And in terms of historical evidence, there's a lot of people have heard of him, Eldad the Danite, who spoke of the Hebrews that were in Africa. Not only that, there is, in terms of like Joshua, someone was mentioning him, historical evidence. Talmud was speaking of the Canaanites, that the Canaanites in Africa asked Alexander the Great to restore to them their country, which had been taken from them by their ancestor Joshua ben Nun, which would be Joshua.
My brother put out a lot of information, man. I appreciate that, though, and because we went out of time, my brother, definitely send me an email at debatetalkforyou@gmail.com, and maybe I can get you on the show, man. You dropped a lot of knowledge there, brother. But right about now, we got to go to the final statement part of the show, guys. Once again, I wish I could get to everybody, but time doesn't permit. So let's go to Shelton Henderson with his final statement. That's going to be 7 minutes. Let's go. Let me open up his phone line, and go ahead, brother. 7 minutes.
Okay, thanks again, Sal. Thanks for the listening audience. Thank you, LaRon, for dialoguing and debating with me. Into the final statement. I think the most telling thing this evening when the brother, I think it was Garfield, I'm not sure, asked the brother to provide one archaeologist, okay, and he didn't give it. And all through tonight we were stuck on Jericho. And as I said before, even if everything he said was true, that Jericho's walls came down and everything, that still is irrelevant to the debate. So he didn't. He just stayed there and didn't talk about anybody else in that whole book, all the battles and the wanderings and Exodus and kings and kingdoms and David and Solomon and all of these, the Philistines interacting with the Assyrians and all of these groups around them, all the interaction, being under the thumb of conquering entities and nothing, nothing do we get from Brother LaRon. And he had the same amount of time that I had, so, I don't understand why he said there's not enough time. The other thing is that he did not refute what I said to him about, he did not refute Israel Finkelstein's statement. Now, like I said, I lean on, we because we're lay people, we have to research and get evidence. We make our decision based on the available evidence, and we draw opinion and get a position based on what we find. But to me, to refute my argument, you have to refute the findings of the people that were digging, okay, and are digging now. And as I stated before, their motivation, if they were unscrupulous, would be to take the information and twist it to fit their agenda or the agenda of their country. So he did not refute that. He did not, these are published authors, professors in prestigious universities, and they are researching this honest research to find answers. And then when the answer doesn't comport to what they, to any type of bias that they have, they present the information. Contrary to, as before, when the archaeology was done, it was called biblical archaeology, where they were going out and force-fitting stories into to fit the Bible. He provided no evidence for Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, nothing about Moses, nothing about wandering in the desert. He told me about Saudi Arabia, but he didn't say, okay, well, the information is in this particular museum, or there's books written about and pictures of this information. He provided no pottery information. The information I can provide, it's all, but the movie is called The Bible Unearthed by Israel Finkelstein and Neil Silberman. The Yale course is online for Dr. Christine Hayes. There's multiple videos online of Dr. Hector Avalos. You have William Deaver, who was under William F. Albright, one of the original Bible archaeologists. These are people, with exception to William Albright, are still alive today, and these digs are going on today. So you have all this research. You have an honest evaluation of the findings of this research by non-biased people, and I would have thought that, if it was me trying to prove a point, I would provide something. What would I do if I was on LaRon's side? I would provide evidence. I would well, the evidence I have is this, and you can go online and look at this evidence. The information he gave me, and he was on the scholar Kathleen Kenyon from the 1930s, and that's not good scholarship, because the world has been going on since the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, and 70s as well. So, it's like he said about, when they dig, they find pottery, they stone, they're able to separate ages and find, okay, this comes from this age and this comes from that age. But where was his evidence in what he spoke about? What age is he telling me that anything about it? He's just talking about Jericho, and as I stated before, he could prove that Jericho existed and there was an earthquake there, but that has nothing to do with anything. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to cover. I think that's about all I wanted to cover. And once again, I want to thank Sal and the listening audience and LaRon. Thank you very much for the debate, and I'll yield the rest of my time.
All right, man. Once again, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show, bringing forth the information to the people out there. And once again, if you want to, for the people that's on the phone, you want to put your email out there. For the people that's on the phone, they probably want to email you. Maybe they can write it down. You got it.
Yeah, my email is thematrixq@yahoo.com. It's like thematrixq@yahoo.com. You can also communicate with me at my blog, at Farpoint with an E, FARPOINTE @wordpress.com. And I also have a YouTube channel, and it's just Shelton Henderson. You can type in on YouTube. I have some debates that I've done and some call-ins and some thoughts that I occasionally upload, videos that I upload. And, please, if you don't agree with me, that's fine, but, if you'd like to communicate with me and maybe we could hash out or talk about something, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, brother. Once again, man, I appreciate you bringing forth the information out here on Debate Talk for you. All right, so let's go to LaRon Campbell, and he has 7 minutes for his final statements. Open up his phone line, and LaRon, you can go ahead, brother. Final statements.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Sal and Brother Shelton, for giving me the debate and, to put the information out there. And one of the reasons why I dealt with Jericho and why I dealt with Kathleen Kenyon and because she's biased against the Bible. So that's why I dealt with her. And I dealt with her because she confirmed things that the other scholars agree with about Jericho that are still, alive to this day. And so when they confirmed these things with dealing with these archaeologists, they disagreed about one thing, and that one thing they disagreed about was the chronology and the dating of it. So that's where she parted that and went a different way, because she said that it's impossible for them to be at this point according to the chronology that they had put forth in that time, which is the Middle Bronze Age. So, when everybody who has came on here has quoted something that deals with 600 BC and beyond. There's plenty of evidence of Israel then it's undisputable. But his claim is, as anybody can see, the root of his claim is there's no evidence of Israel before these people supposedly made up Israel in 600 BC. That's what he's saying, because that's what he believes in. You know what I'm saying? And there's plenty of evidence that's in Jericho. And you guys need to go read Jericho and look it up and deal with the parallels that deal with the biblical events of Israel. And also, I encourage you guys to go look up Joseph that deal with the Bar Yosef, when you deal with the canal that he built to lower the canal by 50% to lower the Nile by 50% into the canal, and they call it the waterway of Joseph. And he dealt with a lot. So I dealt with those certain things that you can look up. It was in the 12th dynasty. So anybody that deals with, it's hard to get a lot of information out that you want to get out. When you press for time, so you have to stick with one thing. His main thing is he want to jump from this, jump for this, jump for that. But there's solid evidence behind archaeologists that you use. You know what I'm saying, when dealing with something. I don't want to jump. My main thing is to prove that Israel. That there's archaeology for Israel, and the Bible parallels with the archaeology, and the Bible does parallel with the archaeology that deals with the story that Israel has given us. His main thing is on the premise that Israel has not has taken and adapted from these stories from someone else, and we can see synchronisms. And his main thing is this thing happened between 600 BC, between 800 to 600 BC. So therefore, that's why I didn't use any information that was later down the line, but I used information that was earlier. And I didn't really get to the city of Hazar, or even deal with the Armana letters, which dates back to 1012 BC according to astronomical dating. I didn't even really get off into the astronomical dating, which we use. And what that is basically about is that deals with some cuneiforms that was found in Ugarit, and the cuneiforms was found in Ugarit, and it was in a temple, and it was the front and back to the cuneiform, to the tablets that was found, and on one of the tablets, the front and back, it deals with a time. It deals with a date, and a date that was given, and then on the back side of it, it deals with an omen text. It puts forth an omen text, and the omen text basically deal with them examining a lamb. And when they examine the lamb, if the liver is badly, then they put forth an omen text. Well, that city was burned down, Ugarit. It was burned down at the time of Akhenaten, and the letter was reported to Akhenaten in the Armana letter that went to Akhenaten. And what it deals with this letter is the letter gave forth the eclipse in the letter. One side dealt with an eclipse, and the other side put forth the Amentex, and the next day that temple was burned down. And the date that it gave, which Akhenaten is dated to 1350 BC, the date that it gave was 1012 BC. The eclipse. It gave, and they translated the eclipse, translated the cuneiform, and it was an eclipse that was at sunset. So this is the problem that we have with that. We have a 1350 BC date given, and then we also have a Ugarit eclipse that was seen. Now, one of the things we trust in astronomical dating better than the chronology. We trust in astronomical dating better than the chronology that they put forth best because astronomical dating you can trace back because we're on a solar regulation and we can trace eclipses that's going to happen years and years, centuries down the line, and we can also rewind them back and trace them back. So this is what they have not used to do absolute dating. They have not used astronomical dating to absolute date or relative dating to absolute date, giving us a history or chronology and ages and stone ages that is based upon somewhat of Egypt, of a listing of Egypt, of Manetho, that has no dates on it, but just an order of kings. But it has no dates on it, so they used a dynasty, made a dynasty list up, and applied the ages to that. And everything is based solely on Egypt, because which is weird, which I find odd, because we have other chronologies that's out there that synchronize with these other ones, which build absolute dates from relative dates. We relative date from kings that met up with the other kings, and then we put forth a relative date to get an absolute date. So for those that know anything about the lingua or whatever, you'll know what I'm speaking on. And with that, I say peace, and I yield my time.
All right, LaRon Campbell, once again, it's an honor and pleasure to have you on as well, putting out the info to the masses out there to go study. As you know, just like you as well. If you have any emails you want to put out there to the people, for those people that's on the phone or via Skype, so they can reach out to you or any information, go ahead.
Yeah, you can reach me at LaRon498@gmail.com, and also you can get at me at in my group. I have a group on Facebook. It's the Bust the Bible Like a Rifle, and then also G Consciousness Radio. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably come on tomorrow on Blog Talk. Probably come on tomorrow, discuss a little bit about the debate and bring out some of the information. I've been actually waiting till this debate was over with so I could bring out my information, because I didn't want to bring out my information and before the debate because of I didn't want him to use some of the stuff that was on the debate. But I'm going to start giving it to him now and all my information in these groups and stuff. So that's where you can reach me at.